Podium, testing. Mic, check. Check. Table left, check. Table right. Budget. Mic 1, check. Mic 2. Center mic, check. Mic 3, test. Four on agenda.
we ready? Well, good morning. Welcome to the Commissioner's Court. We'll start out this morning. I'll start by recognizing Commissioner Rebecca Clay Flores to introduce the person that will be providing the opening prayer for us, then we'll say the pledge. Commissioner?
Thank you, Judge. Good morning. I would like to introduce Pastor Elicer Bonilla, who is the senior pastor of Abundant Life Church, Vida Abundante, since 1998. Pastor Bonilla is married to Dorcas Bonilla. He is also an author and holds an MDiv in cross-cultural studies from Fuller Theological Seminary and is currently pursuing a doctoral ministry degree. The church is celebrating 45 years of service where they focus not only on the spiritual needs of our community, but also has many other community service outreach programs. As I had to decide who was the first person that I would invite to pray over Commissioner's Court, I wanted to invite him as our first pastor because, Pastor, I want to thank you for always welcoming me into your church when I would have an announcement for the community. And so this morning I want to ask that you will lead us out in prayer in both English and Spanish, as is the custom of bilingual service at your church.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please join me and stand.
Good morning and God bless. Today's reading was out of the book of Judges, of all things. But it's interesting that the phrase that we know as God is peace came out of one of the judges. His name was Gideon. God Shalom. And so I thought it was interesting as I was heading this way to ask for God's peace in everything that you endeavor to do. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to serve you in whatever realm you have called us to do so. So today we ask, Lord, that you would show your divine grace and your divine guidance and wisdom over this court. Help us to trust you and to say you are our peace. In the midst of a time where trouble is around us, we thank you that your peace surpasses all understanding. Señor, te doy gracias en este día por este grupo que te sirve. Yo pido que les des, Señor, de tu dirección, de tu bendición, que tu presencia esté con ellos y sobre todo que la paz tuya sea sobre cada uno de ellos en este día. Esto lo pedimos en el precioso nombre de Jesucristo, nuestra paz. Amén. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Please join me in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll take up, Tracy Wolf will be here later on and present the money from the Hidalgo for us, so we'll call her up when she gets here. Item number 4 requests the court to identify items from the Commissioner's Court consent agenda. Any items that you want to pull?
Item 45, Judge.
45.
Item 22, Judge.
22.
Item number 18.
18. Okay. Item 30. Okay, can I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item 18, 22, 45, and 30? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You want to take up any particular? What did you want to?
Why don't we start with Commissioner
45?
Rodriguez? Let's start with Commissioner Rodriguez's items, if you don't mind. I'm just going to give you an update in 1 second. If that's okay? I'm sorry, I know. It's muffled. Why don't we start with your items, if that's okay, and then I'll come back to 45 in just a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. 45.
It's actually 22, Judge, is what.
22. You want to pull that up?
22, yeah, was pulled, and I just.
Number 22 is approval of First Amendment Engineering Services Agreement between Bexar County and Foster Group. Commissioner.
Thank you.
Who's handling that?
Thank you, Judge. I think Renee's coming up, but I know this is in Commissioner Clay Flores' precinct, kind of adjacent to mine. I just wanted Renee. We didn't get a chance to visit on this. It's I guess a change, an increase in the contract amount. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? And the only reason I ask it, I mean, I assume they're doing good work there, but the increase is, a little over 20%. So I just want to make sure we understand what the need for that.
Absolutely, Commissioner. So it is a professional services contract. It was a contract that the court signed in 2015, and that was back when we thought 211 was going to progress and be built within the next 2 years. As you know, we had the issues with the environmental, and then we had the issues with the right-of-way. So that explains the delay from 2015 to today. Because of the changes in the environmental document, we had to look at adding additional retaining walls and bridges. That upped the cost of the amendment for materials testing. So about 60%, Commissioner, of this cost increase is like a pass-through for materials testing, because we had to add those additional structures.
Those additional structures were not contemplated originally, or they
correct.
Were, okay.
They were added because of the environmental document
okay.
at the request of U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Okay, got it.
About 20% of the, not even quite that. Yes, about 20% of the increase is the change in fees between 2015 and 2020. The fees increased about 3.8% per year, which is typical for that type. It was not an outrageous amount being requested. And about 60,000, or a very small, a little over 10%, was contract management support. So at the time that we signed this particular contract, we still had AECOM, who was our program manager on our flood control program, and we were using their contract management document system sort of as a freebie. And then since then, we've released them on these federally funded projects like this. There's a very extensive document control and document management that we have to go through. So it was basically about 60,000 of that contract is so that we can implement that document management system for these federally funded projects.
Okay.
And I think we were, I had talked to Renee about several things on the agenda. I think this is one of the ones we talked about. And then we're also going to be meeting with Mr. Foster later.
Great.
Okay.
And so I guess the last thing is, Renee, I know you've been working on 211 for a very, very long time. I wonder if we need to add to our legislative agenda renaming it to Renee Green Parkway.
No. I don't necessarily want my name associated with it. I appreciate the thought in that, Commissioner,
right.
but
Well,
we'll pass on that one.
Thank you, Renee. I make a motion to approve, Judge.
I have a motion to approve item number 22. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
What item do you
you.
want to pull up next?
We can do 45 now.
45.
Yes.
I'll pull up item number 45.
Judge, thank you very much. I am in receipt. This is related to the Roy Moss Youth Alternatives van. I'm in receipt of a Kronkowski Foundation audit report and a letter from the Office of Governor Greg Abbott, where the governor's office had to admonish Roy Moss for compliance with the auditor's report, meaning that the Kronkowski audit was incomplete because documents were not turned over to comply with the audit. But what the audit document from the Kronkowski Foundation found was that in receiving grants related to child trafficking, that employees were not dedicated 100% of their time to the project, even though they filled out time reports indicating they would be. And that it resulted in billing issues, financial issues. There was a report in the audit that employees and former employees reported that Roy Moss was accepting children in their various programs without regard for program-specific staffing. So obviously when you're dealing with child sex trafficking victims, you have to have trained, very trained people. And as a result, employees were frequently moved from one program to another, quote, to make ratio, and children were placed in any available bed. And the employees reported this practice fostered a belief amongst former Roy Moss employees that the senior management valued money over care, And it was exacerbated by the fact that the management often refused to provide employees with an identifiable need to know access to the grant documents despite repeated requests. So my issue right now is that the agency is not clear of some of these issues. The letter from the governor's office is dated February 11, 2020. There's also some reports that what we are being asked to pay for has already been included in a HUD grant. And in fact, the expenditure is what I would call fluff, meaning they have 3 or 4 vehicles that sit, mobile vehicles that are used, and they're not using those as it is, and yet this would be for another mobile vehicle. So I want to ask the court just to table this. We will give these audits to our staff to do their due diligence, but I wanted to raise some of those issues.
Staff have any objection to that?
And Judge, if I may, I'm supportive of delaying this because I think it was actually delayed several weeks ago. I just want to make sure, and maybe staff can help us with this, that this is not a funding source that we lose if we don't use by a certain time. I think that's important to hash out before we decide on whether or not we proceed today or later.
So these are HUD dollars that are we're restricted by process. So if we don't pass this today, given where we are, we have already kind of delayed to review some of these issues, Commissioner. We would be forced to put another RFP out and start the process over again. Remember, too, that this RFP was done jointly with the City of San Antonio and with the South Alamo Regional Homeless Alliance, or Alliance for the Homeless, SARA. And we divided the work, so they've already spent some of their funding on their portions, which are staffing and other equipment, and our share was the bus for the outreach for youth. We do have their CEO here today.
Let me just make one more comment to the court, and we'll let the CEO respond. There was a front-page article in the Express News about this HUD grant. There are about half a dozen nonprofits that are involved in youth homelessness. None of the agencies have fulfilled the quota of individuals they're supposed to house. When I looked at the budget of this particular HUD grant, it's about $7 million. Only about 10% is going towards the housing stipends, and about $6.3 million is going towards staffing. So I have a real issue with that much money going towards staffing, and you're not meeting the goals and objectives of your federal grant. Yeah. So, if you've got mobile outreach vehicles that are sitting today and you're requesting another one, but yet you're not getting the people in at a time where homelessness is rampant. In fact, even though these issues are very complicated in terms of getting homeless off the street, they sometimes want to go, they sometimes don't. There's other extenuating circumstances. There was another front-page Express News article with a young African-American woman. She was 23 years old. She would have qualified for this particular grant. Opportunity to be housed, and of course there was, I don't want to go into, because we're in a public setting, some details that she was separated from her baby, but I have real questions about how some of these organizations are actually fulfilling the work at a time that we really need it, and whether dollars are being spent as wisely. So whether or not it's a HUD grant that has been granted. Whether there's a matching, David, are you saying that they are required to have a match for this particular?
No, sir. It's just that in order to affect the program as it was proposed would take more than our share of the funding. So we are collaborating with the city and SARA for their shares that they're also putting into this same initiative.
So help me understand. There's $7 million for the program, and what in terms of the approach here, I'm sorry, you want to go ahead and identify yourself for the record?
Sure. My name's Bill Wilkinson. I'm the CEO at Roy Moss Youth Alternatives.
Thank you for coming.
I can speak to the amount of money that we're getting out of that $7 million.
Please, go ahead.
Sure. So it's a two-part street outreach grant. This is strictly street outreach work, so we're not doing the housing portion. Our job is to try to get people to come in from the street, specifically 16 to 24-year-olds. We have $524,000 out of SARA, out of the $7 million the Commissioner has been talking about. And that is to do the staffing to bring kids over to the West Avenue facility at Roy Moss and to work with them to either move them to other services or that type of thing. The specific reason for the street outreach vehicle is so that we can get into the neighborhoods where kids are reluctant to come to the center. They're not sure how to hop the bus. For a lot of these kids, based on where their brain development is, they're making kind of a point-in-time decision. Yes, I'm going to do this. No, I'm not going to do this. And so the innovation of this grant is to actually take the outreach piece to where the kids are, rather than relying on them to find us. And then they would be able to, do things, check in with us. They could get medical appointments, counseling, all of that literally on the spot.
Sir, thank you for explaining that. You may or may not know that prior to becoming commissioner, I ran America's first anti-trafficking organization in Boston. I wrote the laws that created the first $50 million from the U.S. government to implement trafficking and set up the Department of State, Labor, Justice, and Health and Human Services infrastructure. I ran the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force, the Los Angeles Human Trafficking Task Force, and I helped set up the New York Task Force as well as the Boston and the San Antonio when it first started. I have taken trafficking victims into safety, and I've never had to utilize a vehicle to do that. The trafficking victims, when I brought them into safety, it was because of the communication with the victim. And so let me ask you a question about this $524,000. Wasn't that accounted for your vehicle? Your vehicle was included in your approach when you applied for the HUD grant?
No, the $524,000 was not part of the vehicle acquisition. It was simply to provide services over the 2 years of the contract.
Okay.
And we're dealing with a broader population than just the sex trafficked or the trafficked population. Obviously, homeless young people are highly susceptible to being trafficked, and they tend to have, as you know, kind of a different way of moving into the system than a trafficked kid. So for us, it's two separate things. We have trafficking services available, and we have this homeless outreach service available so that we can get kids to rapid rehousing and transitional living programs, that type of thing.
Well, any neighborhood leader or any civic person who's looking around is seeing this these homeless camps in a more prevalent way than we ever had, and so it's troubling to me that the mix of both staffing approaches have not been able to triage more people into housing, particularly at a point where the stipend money is there. There's I would argue there needs to be more than $700,000, but that's the bar that's been taken. So, in terms of you wrote the grant for $524,000. Your approach included this mobile vehicle, and you were granted this, but you weren't granted the funding by the feds for the mobile vehicle, and so now we're coming to the county and city to partner to deliver that? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I believe there was a problem, and I've got my program director and my grant director here who can speak more specifically to that, but my understanding is there was a problem on a vehicle purchase out of the HUD money, and so Sarah had worked with us to partner with the city and the county to manage the vehicle piece.
Now, you already have some vans at Roy Moss, don't you?
We do have vans that provide transport to and from the center. So, if we're the Safe Place vendor for Bexar County. So, obviously, if a kiddo would stop at a Safe Place, we could go out, we could pick them up. The point of this mobile vehicle is to deliver services at the time we have the interaction with the kid for kids who are not interested in coming to a facility.
So explain, this is a very expensive vehicle. Explain to me what's in this vehicle.
Let me bring our program director up, and he can tell you specifically what it's about. Chuck?
Hi, hello, Commissioner. My name is Chuck Paul. I'm the Director of Outreach and CST Services at Roy Boss Youth Alternatives. And like you, I have a background with fighting trafficking and exploitation of youth, abuse, and neglect. So this particular vehicle is going to have 3 sections to it. One is the intake area for the case manager to actually do case management. There's also an area for the clinician to do a counseling service on scene, as well as an area in the back where we would like to have some of our local EMS and volunteering their time, some of our local agencies be able to provide some medical in the back. But that's just the inside of the vehicle. It all starts in what I call the front porch. And the front porch is the awning on the front. That's what's going to draw my young people in. I've been doing outreach for a long time. And what I find is that when I get them out there in the streets and I start to talking to them, I can talk to them from now until the day is long. I hand them a backpack, I give them resources. I think some of the most important things ever is clean underwear, clean socks, right? A little snack, something to eat. You know, I run into young people that just walked out of the SANE exam. They've got nothing on but the scrubs underneath. So I give them some clothes. But the thing about when I talk to them, they're frightened. They're scared. They don't necessarily always want to come inside. What this is going to provide is I'm going to have that awning on the front. They come to the awning on the front. They sit down. We've got a place for them to charge their cell phone so they can get some Wi-Fi service so they can connect to family and friends and resources. Because a lot of my young people, they have cell phones, but they don't have service. So they use free Wi-Fi. Well, they got to go to a restaurant and pay for something, or here they can just get it for free. And I start building a relationship because, as you know, when it's working with any kind of youth, building relationships first. Because if they don't feel safe because they don't know me, they're not going to just trust me. So I'm going to take the time to be a constant presence. We're going to be able to move from neighborhood to neighborhood wherever we see a concentration. We see a camp pop up, we're going to go there. We see another camp pop up in another spot, we're going to go there. This is actually, it's called a step van. It's a little bit larger than your regular vehicle. I mean, a little bit larger. It's not quite as large as an RV. But what this does is provide the immediate services right there on the spot for the young person. I get them connected so we can use that $7 million to get them into housing programs because I want to get them registered right there on the streets. We're going to pull a computer out in the vehicle. We're going to put them on the rapid rehousing list. We're going to do the SA home link right then and there. And because they have a cell phone and they have social media, I know that we can contact them there to notify them when their name comes up on the list. So that's what this is going to do.
Look, I appreciate what you do. I don't think you'll find a more compassionate elected leader when it comes to human trafficking. I wrote the laws. I set up the task forces. I've been contracted by the U.S. government to work with Hollywood and implant the story into popular television shows. I was a consultant to CSA, Miami Law and Order, and all kinds of others. I'm just not comfortable. There are people losing their homes. There's all kinds of need out here in terms of small business. And I really think that, when it comes to Wi-Fi, I can open up a hotspot on my personal phone. When it comes to charging, I can give out charging banks. I just am not seeing the justification for the cost. This is a $200,000+ van. I'm just not seeing
You want
it.
to delay this, Commissioner?
Yeah,
Well, didn't they say if we delay it, we can't delay it, right? Because if we delay it, they're not going to get the funding. Is that correct?
Let's be clear. The funding for the staffing to help the victims is funded by HUD. There's $500,000. They have money for stipends. This is about whether or not we want a $200,000 vehicle to do so. I just can't justify it.
If I can just say, Chuck, it's good to see you. So I know Chuck from serving on the Alamo Area Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And I have to say that now that I know that Chuck's a part of it, anything that Chuck says is going to help human trafficking, then I feel like if you have your stamp of approval, then I will vote for this.
Can we, Judge, can we just get a clarification, maybe from David Marquez? Chuck, thank you. But let me have Marquez come up. Look, I think we all want to make a difference, and Commissioner Calvert's made some excellent points. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Tell me again on the timeline. I mean, if this was delayed until the next Commissioners Court meeting, I don't know if that would give Commissioner Calvert enough time to do some homework there, or no,
Commissioner, I would say one of the friendly, I don't mean to interrupt you, but,
Yeah, go ahead.
If we're going to use $200,000 to help children, let's use that money for stipends to house those children.
Yeah, and I think that's
get them off the streets.
I think that's kind of where I'm going with this. Is where if we don't use it for this, is there some other use, or do we just lose the money? I think we need a clarification on that. So if we delay it for 2 weeks till next Commissioners Court meeting, are you saying that we lose out on this funding altogether?
But also, as you guys know, my background's in nonprofits and education. So a lot of times when money's given, allocated for something, it has to be used for that. So it's not that we can just move it to something else if they've already approved it for something else. So I just want to make sure that we don't lose the opportunity to have something that is needed in addition to other things that we need to fight for.
But if I could, let me just sort of level set. Give me 3 minutes to run through the slides, because that'll get us all on the same page as to where we are, and then I think it'll help you make a more informed decision. This is part of our emergency services grant, coronavirus money. So it must be coronavirus related, and taking homeless kids off the street clearly meets that need. We received $2.5 million. Again, prepare, prevent, and respond to coronavirus. The project was selected back in May 2020, so almost a year ago, with a partnership between COSA and Sarah and the county. An independent review team selected this project for funding from the county share, which I'll show you in just a moment. And then this list of projects that you'll see in a moment came to you in September of 2020. This represents all of the $2.5 million that we received in ESG CV, Emergency Services Grant Coronavirus money. We had already recommended the 160, which pays for my staff. Haven received $256,000. SAM received $400,000 for homeless prevention. This Roy Moss is the next one on the list. And then the Salvation Army received $1.4 million, which we brought that forward to you a few weeks ago. So we've been working through this list of projects. We are now on the Roy Moss one. In terms of what it is, it's the vehicle that was described to you a moment ago. Its cost is $289,000 for this street outreach mobile unit. He described it to you. Here's a sort of explanation of its capabilities and its, how it's looked, what justifies the cost, if you will. It is, in fact, taking the services to the site where the homeless youth would be located, so that they don't have to come in until they maybe can build that trust relationship and then get them to step into the next level of services. And so our recommended motion was for you to approve this 289. Now, if that doesn't happen today, because it started back almost a year ago, we're up against the expiration of the RFP, so we can't be extended. So if we don't pass today, we would have to reissue an RFP, and to go through that process again would put us up against the risk of running against the deadline for the funding itself.
Well, so David, you're saying that this is CARES Act funding, and that funding can be utilized for all the things that fall under CARES Act. It can be used for small business. It can be used for housing, mortgage assistance, all the...
Not all, but yes, for some portions of it, yeah. This is ESG, so some of the more traditional, like rent support, this is really, the ESG is for that lowest income level homeless prevention, homeless rapid response. It's not available for all, but certainly for many of those areas.
Well, I mean, cost-benefit analysis, respectfully, I think the staff has made a mistake in funding this.
Let me read this to you. The Child Welfare Board Executive Committee decided not to recommend the contract to Roy Moss. They have been unresponsive to requests about their use or the trauma-informed care.
I'm going to make a...
Mr. Wilkinson, could we have you come up real quick? Because I know that too. Consider the Child Welfare Board to be a very well-respected organization. The fact that they have decided to not recommend the contract to Roy Moss is problematic for me.
I didn't hear the comment.
Roy Moss has not been recommended by the Child Welfare Board
to
approve the contract. And what I'm saying is that's a very well-respected board.
Sure.
That's problematic to me. What also is problematic to me is this Kronkowski letter regarding the use of the funds where they were supposed to be used and they haven't been used. And I'll be honest with you, I have gotten some feedback from people related to your use of what I would call not necessarily up-to-date tactics regarding restraint of children and the tactics that are being used regarding, and look, these kids come from very difficult places and you have a very difficult job, but I think it would behoove you to be very transparent, about the tactics that are used, the response to the Child Welfare Board, considering we are being asked to approve a lot of money today.
So, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Calvert for getting a copy of the audit from Kronkowski. We have never been presented with a copy of the audit. So we have been audited 9 times in the last 18 months. Every single one is an unmodified opinion. We have 7 years' worth of audits and 990s posted on our website, something fairly unusual for a nonprofit in terms of transparency. As far as the letter from the governor's office, I would suggest that we could call the governor's office and they would support what Armway has been doing. The letter from the governor's office was merely an instruction to Roy Moss that we had to cooperate with an organization that had asked to do an audit on a particular program. That is in federal law. We have federal grants. We know that we have to do that. The governor's office didn't need to send such a letter because it's in the EDGAR, so we already know that. As far as our record, we are regularly monitored, investigated by DFPS. We maintain a license at several facilities. For those of you who are aware, there's currently a federal court case against DFPS where about 50% of all agencies engaged in this work are engaged in heightened monitoring, specifically around child safety, around use of restraint, other practices. And we are not on heightened monitoring with that agency. We are in good standing. Unfortunately, I can't go into the details because we hear rumors too. And I can't go into a lot of the details of that because I need to protect the identity of, specifically 2 of the individuals involved, one who is an ex-foster mom and one who is an ex-employee. So I can't really talk publicly to those individuals. Certainly they can talk all they want, but I'm in a position where I can't defend myself in public because of the nature of the work that we do. We will continue to stand by the work we do. It's considered well respected. We've been doing it for 45 years. I've got staff who've been with us for 39 years, who are licensed child care administrators, who are PhD clinicians. And
so can I, and I don't mean to interrupt you,
no,
but
that's fine.
I want to ask you, why haven't, it's not just your organization in this HUD grant, none of the organizations have reached the number of children they promised the grant that they would get. So with all of this experience, why is that not happening?
Yeah, obviously I can't speak to the other organizations. We received the money on October 1st, and we've been actually hiring into those positions. So our problem is that we have been hiring staff to start doing that outreach, and frankly, thought we would have a vehicle by now to do that work. And without the vehicle, we'll find another way to do that work. But we'll reach the people. If you look at the sex trafficking work that we've done, the first year we wrote that grant, we thought, well, maybe we'd see 60 kiddos in the first year and 120 in the second year. We saw 223 in the first year. We saw over 500 in the second year. We've now served over 1,400 kiddos who've been involved with sex trafficking. We don't get planning grants anymore to start ramping up programs, and that affects your numbers. And we will hit our numbers. And like I said, I can't speak for the rapid rehousing and some of the other programs because I'm not aware of how they're doing.
But we're 6 months in to the grant. Let me just explain something about my experience. I was hired by the federal government to fix the city of Los Angeles. They were in probation with their human trafficking grant. I did it in about a month, no more than 2. So I have, a real issue with All these folks are on the street, homeless. It's front page news. It's the number one issue in the Fairfax poll. And a lot of them are youth. Some of them are foster youth. And the foster organizations are telling me, the small ones that don't get as much money as you are, and this group of seven, they're saying, we're not seeing it. They're telling me, I'm a former foster youth, and I'm not seeing it happen. Our Child Welfare Board has spoken. I am just not comfortable with the approach for this particular amount of money, $289,000 for a mobile vehicle. I mean, it might be a Rolls Royce. I mean, it just doesn't. I'm sorry, people are suffering right now, and I can't justify it. I think we should utilize these funds for the emergency services grants to house people, but not in order to create a mobile vehicle. I just think that's a waste of taxpayer dollars. And I'm going to make a motion that we table this and put it back into the emergency services grant for reconsideration.
I have a second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Got a motion, second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
That motion passes. Item number 18. Who pulled number 18?
I did, Judge. Thank you. And good morning. Listen, the reason I pulled this item, FLSA, has an impact or as a result of the overtime crisis that we have. And so I thought it would be a good idea at this point, since I asked probably 3 or 4 meetings ago for the county manager's office to work in tandem with the sheriff's office to try to get some data and some metrics regarding manpower allocation, why there were double and triple shifts, so that we had data and we had metrics to make informed decisions, because I have an assumption it's probably not going to be too long before the sheriff comes back asking for overtime. And I'm going to reiterate the point. We've got to have information and solid information to make an informed decision. So, thank you. Yeah, Tina, do you want to?
No, I just came up in case you had any specific questions.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about the process, kind of an update where you guys are? Are you prepared to come back to court with that information? I mean, what's going on?
Yes, so we've met several times with the command staff at the jail. We've been going back and forth. We've been working cooperatively. We are probably a week away from sitting down with the county manager to talk about what our recommendations are, which may or may not be in agreement with what the sheriff's office believes should happen. And so that's where we're at.
So has the process been a seamless one? Has it been like pulling teeth? Has it been difficult? I'm just trying to get a gauge of.
It's been a good process.
Okay.
It's a little bit difficult because we're doing things by Zoom. We're trying to meet in person as much as possible. I think that's a better way to do it personally, but for a project this size. But we're there. We're almost there. We have a few pending items we're asking for from the sheriff's office, and hopefully we'll get those by the end of this week.
Okay. So we can expect a presentation on the 23rd?
Yes, as long as David's good with it.
Okay. So I have a follow-up question. So I know for a fact we probably have about 150 bailiffs
Yes,
that have not been
more or
actively
less.
engaged because we've had kind of a hold on court, what's going on there. But my question would be, how are we utilizing those 150 bailiffs? Couldn't they be a resource as far as detention at the jail, considering there are 250 vacancies associated with that? So anyway, any input you have regarding that would be helpful.
Okay, we'll include that, yes.
David, do you want to weigh into that?
I just know we've done this now, at least Tina and I have done this sort of process several times over the last 20 years. And it does take a while. You're talking about the single biggest cost center in Bexar County, the largest single employment center in Bexar County, and you're going literally post by post to identify. And that's where the agreement comes. Is this a 24/7 post? Is it a 2-shift post? Should it be a post at all? That's the kind of post-by-post discussion. And we haven't done this since Susan
2014
Palmer
or something
Yeah.
I think it was 2014.
So it's been a little while. It needs to be done given the overtime problem so we can understand how much of this is vacancies, how much of this is staffing inefficiencies caused by COVID in the jail. So that, and some of it we may agree that this is this is a recommended reason to have it. Some of it may be, why does this post exist at all? So it's a slog. But we have been working well. Our two staffs have been working well together. I think we'll be ready to go, I hope, at the next meeting. The bailiff question is one I've had and asked Tina to ask.
That is one of the pending items.
So do we have some initial thoughts on bailiff? Sheriff, if you want to come up to be able to maybe answer that question regarding how bailiffs are being utilized, or are they not being utilized, what's going on?
Yes, ma'am. Some of the bailiffs have been reallocated to help with transport, to help with some of the Zoom court. That is what we're relying on, and looks like we're going to be relying on for the foreseeable future. So bailiffs are being utilized to offset some of that where we can.
Okay, so the whole 150?
No, not the whole 150.
Okay,
there is still a presence that has to be maintained here at the jail or at the courthouse. But those that we are able to use to offset our expenses at the jail, absolutely we are.
Okay. So I guess my question would be, since court, obviously the court system has not been working, and that people have not been in full time, and we've not had in-person, in-court trials. I'm just wondering about, are we utilizing the bailiffs to the extent that we need to be? I know you said you've been reallocating those resources, but I have a hard time believing that all of them are being utilized, especially considering you have 250 vacancies at the jail. And look, I know it's not easy. You don't just move bailiffs over to the jail. I get it.
Well, we've got about 150 true vacancies at the jail. In other words, the rest of that is right now, it's not an empty position. There's a cadet in it, or there's a trainee in it. And so they're not 250 straight up vacancies, about 150 bodies that we're still lacking for the agency. We are going to see graduations in the next 2 weeks. We're going to see about 60 cadets graduate the academy in the next couple of weeks, and then also in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see about 80 start with the agency. And so we're chipping away pretty substantially at that vacancy number. But yes, we are using bailiffs to the extent that we can to help with the Zoom court hearings, which again, I think that's going to be the new normal for at least the foreseeable future. And we're utilizing those bailiffs to the extent that we can.
Okay, so explain to me how the bailiffs are used in these Zoom court hearings.
Well, they've still got for example, if we've got a computer set up for a Zoom hearing in a part of the jail, well, that bailiff still has to help get that person over to the inmate from their living unit to where the court hearing is going to be taking place. They've got to be able to set up the Zoom, and so we've actually had our bailiffs train on how to get everything set up, how to make sure it's not, they're not on mute while they're talking, and how to basically take their bailiff duties and evolve them to facilitate those computerized hearings.
So, my point is, I guess I just want to make sure we're maximizing resources, since it seems to me we still have a crisis at the jail, especially with regard to overtime and filling vacancies. I will tell you, I did have the pleasure of interacting with some of your cadets. Bottled water distribution at Bullis County Park. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Great kids. I mean, they're young, obviously, or whatever, but I'm glad to see that we have folks that are in the pipeline, and I'm going to be, touring the academy very soon. But I guess my question to you would be, I do anticipate you're going to come back to the court with another overtime request. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We're trying to come back with a number that's amenable to us and to, of course, the county manager's office. So that's one of the things that we are. They're sitting us down, and they're making sure that we're answering the questions and that we're justifying every last bit of man hours that we're coming over here for. So absolutely, I don't want you to get the impression that we're just blindly, let's just write checks and treat it as a bottomless pit of money. We're absolutely trying to be judicious with it. However, we do also have to maintain jail standards. We've got to make sure that we're maintaining jail standards.
Yeah. So I'm not going to belabor this, but I hear you, Sheriff, regarding, we're not just throwing money at the problem, but I think that's the perception issue that you have, is that we're throwing money, good money after bad, and we're not seeing any changes or any shifts. So my hope is when you come back to the court, whether it's the 23rd or whether it's a later date, I want to see a full presentation on maximizing resources that we have, whether that includes the bailiffs, and other resources that you have, the new cadets that are coming on board. But I will reiterate, I want to see data and metrics associated with how you're handling the overtime situation. That's the expectation. Because we cannot continue to make an informed decision regarding overtime unless we have that data. So I appreciate the fact that you're working with the county manager and Tina, but that's the expectation.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick before you leave, a little bit of this is politics with the judges. Every judge has a bailiff assigned to their court. Is that correct? And they're there.
Yeah, most have two.
Most have two? Why do we need two?
This is where
Sorry.
the difficulty comes in. This is where the difficulty comes in, and this is not the sheriff's fault. Last count I counted, we had close to 50 judges or so running around here. That's 100 bailiffs, and they're not in their court at the most maybe a few hours a day. And so that's where the political problem comes. We did talk about a central bailiff pool that when a judge comes in, the bailiff is right there to be with him and be with him when he's there. But we've never done that because we know the judges are going to be down here hollering. And if we really want to do the right thing, that's what we would do. But it's politically difficult, and it's not the sheriff's fault on the bailiff issue. So,
but I think to your point, Judge, that's a potential solution that we've got to pull people together to be able to talk about this. And you're right, Sheriff, it's not on you, but it's a resource that we could maximize. And we just, like I said, we need to have bigger conversations around this. And look, I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one. I want to be a help. I don't want to be a hindrance, but we got to get a handle on the situation.
Would you all like me to explore what other major counties are doing?
yes, what they're doing with their
how they're
bailiffs,
handling
that
it.
would be very helpful. In fact, I was
Yes.
just fixing to ask David that. But if you could do that,
Sure.
How other, because when you get to Houston and Dallas, I mean, they've got a lot more than we've got.
Sure.
And
Judge,
there's got to be a better way than what we're doing it.
Yes.
Judge, and it may be helpful for a future, I don't know if next meeting or sometime in the next couple of months. I talked to Judge Ronhell last week, and I think they're getting ready to go back to some more in-person hearings. Maybe not in-person jury trials yet, but maybe he can come and present the plan to the court between him and Judge Longoria, because I think that will help with allocation of resources.
That would help us inform the decision.
I think you could start at a minimum. If you're going to have a minimum physical presence in the courtroom, then the need for 2 bailiffs full-time assigned to each courtroom might be
That's a bit excessive.
Can someone speak to why there's 2? What do you mean it's political? Why are there 2 bailiffs?
In some cases, for the district courts, I believe it's statutory. The legislature just wrote in they get 2 bailiffs.
Yeah, well, but considering the environment that we're living in, Commissioner K. Flores, it's excessive.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking why they're 2. Because, as I've been meeting with all the departments, and we got a tour of one of the courts, and I noticed there were two bailiffs, and I asked them, so what do you guys do? So obviously if it's law, we can't do anything about it. But is that in every courtroom?
No, the law is not applicable to all courtrooms in which there are 2 bailiffs, and that's just kind of evolved budget to budget over time.
Well, and I think the point is, at least my point is that I think it's one thing to have this discussion in a Zoom hearing environment, right?
Yeah.
We are about to, and we're going to keep some, I think, but we're about to transition, I believe, into some in-person hearings. I've practiced in those courts. I can tell you there's a need, particularly in the district courts or even the county courts, to have 2 bailiffs when you're bringing in prisoners, and you've got to do some control of the crowd. But again, we're almost having 2 different discussions. One is, probably what we should have been operating under over the past year, but now we're going to go back into some in-person hearings. So I think it's a fair point and a good discussion, but I think that we need to probably have the administrative judge come in and give us their perspective.
To your point, Commissioner Rodriguez, I think Judge Ronhell coming to the court, you have to give us an update on how many in-person, courtroom proceedings they're going to have versus how many are going to continue on Zoom, because quite honestly, I've had conversations with attorneys, et cetera, who are like, we kind of like this Zoom thing. Like, it's more productive. We get it done. There's cost efficiencies associated with it. So, my point is, we've been, March, we've marked a year anniversary. We've only been utilizing Zoom hearings. So my question is, what have 150 bailiffs or so been doing during that time? So
let me just give a little perspective. This has been a super conversation. The whole morning's been a good conversation, actually. But the courthouse is one of the most dangerous places in town.
Oh, I agree, Tommy.
Yeah,
yes.
it's and so with the hundreds and maybe hundreds of folks who are in the justice system here, it's a very dangerous place. So I think a meeting with the judges and some of the things that they go through would be good, and I do think by the summertime we'll probably be more like normal or maybe hybrid. I don't know. Who knows? But just bear that in mind. This is one of the most dangerous places in town. So
yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. I don't agree with that decision. We're one of the safest courthouses. We everybody that comes in here get checks for guns. They get checked at every door. We got 150 bailiffs running around here. We got sheriffs and deputies running around here. If you want to be safe, this is probably the safest place you can be. But the bailiffs ought to be there when they're doing something. But a big majority of the time, the courts are not doing anything.
Yes, sir.
And that's where the wasted money.
I think we're on the same page, Judge. I think we're on the same page. That's what I'm asking. Is we've been in Zoom hearings for a year. What have we been doing to maximize resources and realize cost efficiencies? So
okay. Did you make a motion on this?
Well, I make a motion that obviously we come back to the court with data and metrics regarding an informed decision on the overtime situation. So I will leave it to that motion, and then perhaps we make another motion to have Judge Rangel come to the court to give us an update on what's going on with the courts.
But are you making a motion to pass 18, or you?
Yes, that's
okay.
Yeah.
I got a motion. Do I have a second for item number 18? Okay, I got a motion and a second for item 18. All those in favor will say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Item number 30.
Yeah.
So the motion is for approval with the correction of the caption. Can I have a
Yeah,
motion?
and I'll make that. It's in my precinct, Judge. It would be a motion to approve item 30, but to clarify, should read that last sentence not within the Edwards Aquifer Recharge Zone.
Okay,
so that would be my motion.
Do you have a second to that motion? Got a motion and a second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
No, the ayes have it. Okay, item number 5, filing for a record the following legal and administrative documents and directing the criminal district attorney's office to take action if necessary. That's item 5A through I. Item number 6, Commissioners Court meetings of February 23rd. Need a motion for approval. Second. Got a motion and second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Citizens to be heard. Donette Goretta.
Good morning. I'm going to be brief. First, I want to thank Commissioner Calvert. I was last here on the 15th, and ironically, again, my 2 issues about the jail, and now one about Roy Moss. So I have a little input on Roy Moss because that's the reason why my whole situation is where it's at, and with a Julie Strenzik. But nonetheless, I have been working with Commissioner Calvert and sending him some information because my experience of 5 months in jail for a psych eval is a little extensive, and what I saw in there is very concerning. And I'm speaking on behalf of the inmates as well as the detention officers. Okay? So I will keep sending information back. Ironically, I have court tomorrow, so I have to go get some more documents. But nonetheless, I still don't know if he shared with you. I'm willing to sign a hold harmless agreement and give you a tour of how the jail works. My 5 months is pretty good on letting y'all know because you need to be there to understand what's going on, and which would be the kiosk as well and the computer systems. Okay? Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Jack Finger. Jack, how you doing, buddy? That's right.
Judge Wolf, other members of the Commissioners Court, for the record, my name is Jack M. Finger. Via Metropolitan Transit and the Bexar County government are interconnected. Via Metropolitan Transit, its purpose is to transport people all around the city, all around the county. The Bexar County government appoints members to its board. It also gives a little bit of funding, as I recall. Its various needs and so forth. You've got a problem, a very big problem with Via Metropolitan Transit. During the big freeze we had a few weeks ago, Via Metropolitan Transit did not run a single regular bus. Not just on one day, not just on 2 days or 3 days. It failed to run any regular buses all 4 days of that big freeze. 4 blasted days. How are people supposed to get around, especially if they did not have a vehicle? Now, Via, I believe, comes up with the excuse that, well, road conditions were too dangerous for our employees to travel upon and to get to the bus transit center to operate the buses. I'm sorry, that does not wash. Yes, even with single-degree temperatures. We've had single-degree temperatures in the past here in San Antonio, and Via still ran the buses. We've had snow in San Antonio in the past, and Via still ran the buses. There's absolutely no excuse for Via to have withheld its regular buses for all of its riders. Yes, I know many people stayed at home, but many people are employees to needed essential services here in the county. They need to get to where they need to go, and many of them do not have vehicles. Some of them who have vehicles were broken down due to the extreme temperatures, and they still couldn't get where they had to go unless they walked or rode a bike. Should they have walked or rode bikes in the weather? No, Via fell down. Quite frankly, it was an outrage. There's absolutely no excuse for Via to have done that. Up north, in states like New York, the Dakotas, where you have frigid temperatures all the time, they find a way to get around it.
Time has expired, buddy.
Thank you. I think you get the point.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, we'll look into it. We will. Thank you very much. Okay, we're ready to go to individual items. Item number 49, discussion and appropriate action regarding approval of Bexar County Plumbing Assistant Program. David Marquez.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners. I'm just going to give you a very brief status on our programs so far. Of course, you know we began with the reimbursement program for folks who had repaired their plumbing. And as of this moment, we have received 114 applications in English, 7 applications in Spanish. We are in the process of reviewing those, and we'll be sending those as they are approved or reviewed to the auditor's office for his review and approval and to cut the checks. Last Friday, we began the I Need a Plumber program for those folks who have yet been able to fix their homes to get potable water back in. And as of this morning, there are 49 applications received in English and 1 in Spanish. I know that we're continuing to promote those. There's still plenty of capacity available in our programs. We have received quite a few more phone calls, but when they leave a message and we're calling back, those numbers accrue to this same count. So I do need to get you numbers on the number of phone messages we received, but whether they speak to a person live or leave a message, the measure of whether they're in the program is still this same number. So some of the 114, I guess is what I'm saying, are people who left a message and we've called back and made connection and signed them up for the program. This happened very quickly. I have to give a ton of credit to our BCIT folks, Rebecca Gresham and several others over there in the telephone side and the IT side. They worked through the night, through the weekend to make this happen for our residents. So they deserve a lot of credit, and they never get to stand up here and receive that. So I really appreciate them for all their hard work. There is still the item on the agenda for the approval of the contract itself for the plumbers. You have that in front of you, the ARAM plumbing contract, who will be the prime contractor for those folks who need a plumber, who will be dispatched as those calls are fielded and set up.
Judge, Commissioners, just before you ask questions and get clarification, I just also want to make sure there were a whole bunch of people working on this to make it happen very quickly, but in particular, I want to give a special thanks to Renee Watson and her team for this plumber that we're contracting with actually came through our mentor protege program, and they're giving back. They've grown, scaled up, and now they're giving back to the community at a time that it's needed. But Renee Watson and her team also were instrumental in pulling this program together.
David, thanks for mentioning that. I was going to actually ask David Marquez. I'm glad to see that it's a local DBE, small business, MBE. Is that how? I guess tell me a little bit about how they were selected for this, and I know it was part of the mentor protege program, but was there? I mean, in a situation like this, we don't do an RFP, right? This is an emergency response.
Right. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Go ahead. So just talk a little bit about how they were identified.
So thanks to Larry's good guidance, we were able to use the health and safety exception and not have to go out to bid. I think the point about the mentor protege is we had established a working relationship and understanding of this firm, so they were selected because we knew who they were and we knew their capabilities, and they were expressed a willingness. As you know, all plumbing firms are very busy right now, so they were willing to take this on top of their regular commercial workload. So that's a testament to them. But they were selected based on Renee's and her team's recommendation.
And is it? Go through those numbers one more time, David, because I wanted to make sure I got those. You
Spanish and English for the I Need a Plumber program, it's 50. It's 49 in English on the English application, 1 on the Spanish application.
Okay.
On the reimbursement program, it's a total of 121.
Okay.
That is 7 for the Spanish and 114 in the English
I'm sorry, David,
application.
what is the difference between the reimbursement and the first thing you described? What was the first thing you described? The first program?
The 50 is...
50 are those who don't have their plumbing fixed yet and need a plumber dispatched.
Okay.
They need a plumber.
And then you mentioned, too, you probably have some pending voicemails and things like that. What's that number?
They come in overnight, and we continue to process those every day. We had a bit of a backlog because in starting up, we weren't able to access the voicemails for the first couple of days on the reimbursement. Again, that helped our new program where we didn't have that problem. So, but I don't have those numbers directly, Commissioner.
Okay.
Last time I checked, there were 120 voicemails in the queue. We have worked through that, and so some of the 120 the 121 that you see on the reimbursement side were people who were in the queue and have since been spoken to.
And I guess when I was asking about the contractor, do you at this point do you think 1 is enough? I think that's where I was headed with that. I mean, is it possible that we could have 2 or 3 in this pool to dispatch? I'm just curious. I don't know.
Yes, is the short answer. And
you think 1 is enough?
No. Yes, we can have contracts with as many as you like. The more, you want to try and make sure there's some work for them.
Sure. Yeah.
But because otherwise there's other work they can probably get
right
in this environment. But, we never designed this to be just one contractor for the whole time.
Yeah.
Depending on demand.
So, yeah, I assume you're going to be back next court meeting with an update. I think we need to keep an eye on that, because if one is not enough, this is a matter of people having running water or not. And if one contractor is not enough, we probably should tweak that to add, a couple more, just to have, a pool of them on hand. But I guess just keep us posted on that, David. The other thing, I wanted to mention, first of all, is thank Commissioner Clay Flores for her leadership. I know this was something that she brought forward that very meaningful, not just to her precinct and her community, but the whole county. As you can imagine, I'm getting calls because of the makeup of my precinct, primarily for those in the city of San Antonio. And I'm a little bit perturbed that the city's not putting any skin in the game here. I know SAWS was doing some private fundraising. Anyway, I want to just keep the conversation going, not for today, but for the future, depending on how things play out. Some of those constituents of mine that we have that are in desperate need, that we figure out a way to help them. Again, I'm not going to tweak this today, but I just want to make sure we keep that in mind. These are all folks that are paying Bexar County taxes, and I get it. Maybe the judge can help put some pressure on the mayor to put a little bit of more city money or a city dollar into this program to start. Because, again, those are folks that are in need, and they don't necessarily distinguish between whether or not, it's county or city. They just want help.
That was one of the issues, you'll recall, that we had. We initially started by exploring partnering with SAWS and their existing to have them administer this program. But one of the initial disagreements, just to put it frankly, we had was SAWS was pretty insistent on sticking with their federal poverty guidelines, which would mean, in their case, if you were a family of four and had made over $34,000 a year, you wouldn't qualify for assistance. Our program is based on 80% of area median income, so I think it's 57. So there was a big difference.
More families will qualify
regarding qualification. Yeah,
and that's the standard for a HUD program. So we don't usually see that poverty guideline for this type of an incentive. We understand why, but your approach throughout all of the pandemic has been to use the 80% AMI as much as possible and allowed.
David, one quick question. Now, you and I had conversations about the fact that many of the unincorporated areas, are on wells. Those people have been severely impacted because not only because you can't find parts, so it's taken them longer to be able to get that up and running. I'm just wondering, and thank you to Commissioner Clay Flores for bringing this forward, and to you and the staff for really jumping in to be able to get this accomplished. But for my folks that still don't have running water because they're on a well system, I want to be able to put something out in a newsletter that says that they qualify. So.
Well, certainly if they have repaired a well, our program is also agnostic to where the water comes from.
Okay.
There are some, I forget the number, 50-something water providers, licensed
45 other water providers.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And
so, David, real quick though, David, the issue we're going to have is we're probably not able to find those parts anymore.
Well, which is what I said in the beginning.
Right.
I mean, that's why they don't have water.
But if they've paid to repair them,
yes,
then
they can be
can
reimbursed.
apply for reimbursement.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
Right.
Okay,
we
awesome.
would accept those as proper costs.
Okay.
I did get one
Thank
text a few minutes ago, Commissioner Rodriguez, from the family that I've been speaking to out in the 211 area. She has hers up and running. In talking with her well provider, he has a backlog of 150 wells that he's going to have to plow through over the next couple of months. So it is a substantial issue. It's in all of your precincts. You all have either rural or formerly rural that are kind of encapsulated, like Hollywood Park or Castle Hills or wherever it may be.
Fair Oaks,
that
Timberwood
have
Park.
wells still. So yeah, there's a big challenge out there for those folks. So,
Yep.
Judge,
Yes.
just a couple of questions. I want to echo Commissioner Justin Rodriguez's comments about more than one. I definitely have had calls from plumbers who would be willing to be a part of it. And just tell me a little bit about this company, ARAM. What is their number of employees that they have?
I don't know that I have that number off the top of my head, Commissioner, but as Mr. Smith mentioned, it was always our intention to have more. We envisioned it through when Commissioner Clay Flores brought it forward that we would need, just by the size of the county, 1 or 2 in each quadrant, just to try to eliminate them having to drive from far east side to the far west side or vice versa. We're just in trying to stand it up quickly. This firm was available. They can take on subs as well. But we can certainly go back and look for additional plumbers who are
one of the
interested in the
things that
program.
happened with a plumbing company that called my office about this was I think they were in talks with your department, but then you all told them to talk to ARAM about being a sub, and then ARAM said, we don't know anything about the sub program and bringing anybody in. So I don't think they, I mean,
That would be a Renee question.
Well,
Renee was handling that part of it.
Well, no, it was your department and the community economic development. It was a staff. I have the lady's name, but I'll deal with that later. I didn't know who she was. But in terms of a sub, I don't think anybody needs to sub under anybody and create a middleman. We just need to have more plumbers have access to implement the program.
So early on, Commissioner, we were not sure how we were going to be able to contract for these services. And again, working with the DA's office and Larry specifically, it's now and purchasing and the auditor as well. It was a team effort. We now have a purchase order approach. So as long as a firm is willing to sign up to those terms, we should be able to use them. And that's that they're either licensed or master plumbers, where the rate is set at $100, I believe, an hour, $35 if they make a service call that they can't repair, but they still made the effort to go out and assess. And then the billing and all of those things the terms are all laid out.
So Larry, we're using the Emergency Public Health Disaster Act, rather, to do the rapid procurement. So is that basically the law we're using for procurement in this?
For procurement purposes, you're using the exception contained in 262.024A2, which is the items necessary to preserve and protect the public health or safety.
Great.
I think everybody agrees that restoring water service is a public health issue.
Right. So, thank you for that. I'm familiar with that section of our procurement law. So, are we? So we're only means testing the ability to take advantage up to 80% of AMI, right? That's our means test.
Yes, sir. We're not technically not means testing. It is self-reporting.
Reporting. Okay. So, in terms of the amount of time it's taking this one company to respond to the plumbing needs, do we have any data yet on how long it's taking for I guess it's about 50 people who still don't have a plumber?
We had put some expectations in the PO. I think it's within 2 to 3 days to have the call out, which is what it's going along with the commercial market today. That seems to be about standard. We are able to prioritize. Renee was able to help someone who called my home that was a hardship case, a very severe health issue for elderly people, and get that prioritized. And we worked through a solution on that. But that's what we're looking at.
So in terms of the expectation conversation you have with the company, are they basically pulling back a lot of their regular calls to handle our situation? Because if I don't know and you don't know the capacity of how many employees, it's hard to calculate what does that mean every 2 or 3 days. I mean, because if you've got 50, is that going to be 100 days? Is it like 1 a day? I mean, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, again, that's a Renee Watson question. She's the one that's interfacing with ARAM.
Okay. So let me just say for the record, I think, it's a real shame that, we have a circumstance where SAWS is not helping us. When government asks government to help each other, I mean, it's for a good reason. And we try, I think, at the county to be as reciprocating as possible with the city. And there's a lot of good things we do together. I'm not saying that there isn't, but this is a disaster and emergency, and, we have to be flexible. So I really feel SAWS should take a second look at this approach, and certainly, there will be more disasters, and we need to work much closer together. So there's going to be a lot of people who can't afford to front up to $1,500. Have we thought about a process of how to deal with those folks?
That's really what the I Need a Plumber is supposed to address, is someone who can't get reimbursed later We dispatch the plumber works on a PO.
Okay. Well, that's certainly that's certainly encouraging to hear, and with that, I mean, obviously, I want to thank Commissioner Clay Flores for doing this, because it does benefit every precinct and every taxpayer, and we obviously there's a lot of kumbaya that needs to happen around city and county on emergencies, because we're not working as closely together as we need to be. So.
Yeah, agreed. David, it might be a good idea that you come back to court, to talk about, like, to the commissioner's point, response times, how many have utilized the program. Just give us some data on how effective the program is, because, I mean, we've appropriated the money, so it's good to see how it's being spent.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
We'll get you more reports. Right
Okay.
now it's just sort of a sign-up report, but
Yeah,
as we get into
perfect.
actual performance, we'll bring that back to you.
Okay, thank you.
You need any action on this?
I just
Yes,
want to
sir.
thank Renee Watson's team and your team, David, and also city manager's team for working endlessly. And I know my staff and I always have a lot of questions, and we're on top of things. So thank you for working hard with us. And just to reiterate what Commissioner Calvert and Commissioner Rodriguez have already said, it's a shame that the city receives so much money from SALS, the county does not, yet the city didn't put money, real money, into the program for the city residents, who are also many of our constituents.
Yes, sir. You need to approve the contract with ARAM.
Yeah. Do we need a motion on this, David?
Beg your pardon?
Do we need a motion
Yes,
on
so
this?
I think you have a motion and a second already, if I'm not mistaken, to approve the contract.
So I move to approve.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
That a motion? Do I have a second? I got a motion and a second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those no, the ayes have it. Ms. Tracy Wolf is here today to bring us some dinero for Bibliotech.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Tracy Wolf, founder and president of the Hidalgo Foundation of Bexar County. And this is the first time I've been in our wonderful historic courtroom that we restored since we've had the new commissioners. So I want to congratulate Commissioner Flores and Commissioner DeBerry, and just say to both of you that I look forward to working with you on any projects that you need me to help with. With me today, and I'm here for the good news only today, with me here today is Laura Cole, the director of the Bibliotech, and of course my pal and wonderful grant writer, Dr. Alan Castro, who has seen me through many, many bouts of writing grants and raising a lot of money. And I am here today to bring you $100,000 because Laura said that she needed more money for children for Google Chrome and hotspots. We had already had raised about $500,000 after the pandemic hit for that very cause, but we need more always, and so we are here today to present this check. I also wanted to just give you, with our new commissioners, a little bit of an update. I don't know why I did, but I got started raising dollars early on when we decided to do the Bibliotech EDU downtown on the Castech campus. And so today we're a little over $1 million in the bank with the help of the Charles Butt Foundation, Greehey Foundation, of course, Harvey Nasium Foundation, Graham Weston 80/20, Valero, and Toyota, who came across in a big way. So we have money in the bank. We're ready to get started on the Bibliotech EDU whenever. I know the bids are out right now, so we're looking forward to that. And Laura, you want to say a few words here, please?
I just want to say that I love being here whenever Tracy is here. It's always a joyous occasion for me. And the pandemic has really seen, Bibliotech through the pandemic has really seen its value to Bexar County. You know, we are, all of our platforms, our content platforms have seen a significant increase in usage and circulation. And obviously, you know, we've increased our hotspot circulation tremendously. So this is just a welcome gift, and I can't thank Tracy enough. So,
Well, thank you very much, and Thank you very much for raising all this money for us. Give that money to David. He'll spend it right away. I say give it to David. He'll spend it right away.
That's what David says about you, Judge.
He doesn't. We were.
I would tell you that Laura's faster than he is.
Judge, if I might
thank
just,
you all very much
just
for your
say just a couple words. Tracy, thank you for everything that you do. I know this is not just a labor of love, but it's something that you put a lot of time and effort into, and we appreciate it very much. Dr. Castro does a great job, by the way. And for our new commissioners, Tracy doesn't show up often, but when she does, it's one of two things. She's got good news like this, or she's just checking up on Nelson. So keeping him out of trouble. But we appreciate it because you do so much work in our community, Tracy. And, as we all know, this is, the community and private sector is a big part of the partnerships that we have, and we can't do it without that collaboration. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
A couple of other things. First of all, you're right, Commissioner Rodriguez. Checking up on Nelson is more than a full-time job. So, I'm sorry about that, Tracy. But I have had the opportunity, even before I was sworn in, to take a tour of the Bibliotech on the east side, the new one there, and tremendous facility. And when we look at bridging the digital divide and the opportunity associated with that, your work, is critical at this point. So anyway, we will thank you forever because of the legacy that you've left regarding the imprint of education on our community and Bibliotech. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say the Bibliotech, Tommy, is amazing because I was talking to someone in New York the other day about a grant, of course, and they mentioned the Bibliotech. I mean, it startles me sometimes how well known it is around our country. And I'm looking forward to the day where we can take the lead on recreating it around our country. Yeah. I think that time will come somewhere in the future. Maybe one of you will do it, but I think that's coming because it's been so effective. So.
Yeah, thank you again for your work. I echo all the comments that have been made here, and of course, this is going towards the Nelson and Tracy Wolf Bibliotech, which is just a reminder that we'll get opened up with these dollars. And thanks to Dr. Castro as well for all of his grant writing. He's probably brought in $50 million over the course of his work, and thanks for working as a team with Mrs. Wolf and, of course, with Laura. So I move approval of acceptance of the donation to Hidalgo.
Thank you.
Motion
Thank you
and a
very
second.
much.
All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you so very much. Item number 50, discussion appropriate action regarding approval of professional agreement with Mormon Mock.
Good afternoon, Judge and Commissioners. My name is Dan Curry, Director of Facilities Management. Perfect segue. I actually will be telling you that here at the next Commissioners Court, we're working with purchasing to bring the award of the Bibliotech EDU project to you guys. So you'll see that on the next Commissioners Court agenda. But today I'm here to talk to you about our workforce training center located at the Brooks development. So we've been walking through this process kind of slowly and deliberately, so forgive me a little bit of the background information. But again, the Workforce Training Center is a 30,000 square foot facility that was fully funded by the court, and it creates a location for Texas Fame and other entities to create advanced manufacturing training to help supplement some of those jobs that are needed in that industry. It is located on the Brooks development in Precinct 4. So to give you a little background as we walk through this project, in December 2019, the court authorized the project and told us to release a request for qualifications for consultants. February 7th, we received all of those. And again, there was a bit of a pause. As you know, the pandemic hit and non-discretionary spending stopped from about April till October. Once we were reauthorized at the adoption of the budget, we restarted this process on October 20th. We brought to you an item of Commissioners Court because we had two very qualified firms that were neck and neck with each other. So we asked your authority to interview with these two firms, which was Gensler and Marmon Mock. And after that interview, we concluded there was a bigger spread in those scores, and Marmon Mock came out head and shoulders above. So on December 1st, we came to the court and asked for authority to negotiate with Marmon Mock for this service agreement. And we're here today to ask for execution of that agreement. So here's a little background. The proposed site which we've been working back and forth with Brooks on, and we're very happy at this point with the location because it's right on the corner, because it's high visibility. It's on city-based landing and aviation landing, or probably city-based road and aviation landing, which is a very prominent corner in that section, not kind of buried back with the industrial projects. So we're very happy about this site. It's about 6 acres, 5.99 to be exact. And we're working on Brooks about the procurement of that site. Here's some initial project concepts that we had since the beginning of the project. Again, this is a high bay solution. It will have classrooms. It will have other locations where we can put robots, conveyor systems, and other items in this high bay system so those students can learn how to work on and repair those systems. Because really these students are going to be learning how to correct and maintain the equipment that builds the conveyor belts or builds the automobiles, so the robots to do these kind of things. It's not just working on the assembly line. These are advanced manufacturing techniques and training. Again, so some concepts about what the site would look like. And again, we did these concepts before we had proposed a site, so it'll change slightly. But again, some of the interior renderings will be very similar to what we imagine. Again, there'll be a mix of classroom instruction, there'll be hands-on laboratory, be meeting space, and other locations. So here's a breakdown of what the agreement is. The agreement is $1.1 million. About $37,000 of that is project programming. So the consultant firm Marmon Mock will sit down with Texas Fame user groups, identify exactly what services they want to train, skill sets they need, and exactly what spaces they desire. The site survey and boundary will have to replat it as a requirement. So once we buy the parcel, platting will be required since it's inside the city of San Antonio. So those fees are included. And the bulk of that is just the design fees. It's the schematic design, design development, construction documents, and then construction administration, which is watching the project as it moves along. It's about $1 million is the bulk of the fee. And then supplemental fees, which is obviously coordinated with the CMR, code consulting, and all those other requirements is about $32,000. So all in, it's about $1.172 million. The estimated cost of construction for this facility is about $10.5 million. So we always gauge whether we're in the ballpark of appropriate amount of fees, which is a 9 to 13% range of cost of construction. This lands right at about 11%. So we're in that window what I think is appropriate for fees for this facility. So today we're asking for approval of professional services agreement with Marmon Mock LLP and Bexar County in the amount of $1,172,922 for programming, site survey, plat services, design development, construction administration related to the Workforce Training Center. I know Brian Harkowitz and his team from Marmon Mock are here to answer any of the questions if you have it.
Let me make a couple comments, and then I'm sure there'll be others. One, I think being in Brooks is a great place for us to be, Commissioner Precinct 4. And I think it ties in with other things that are happening at Brooks toward education. You've got the high school that's there, what do we call it?
I think it's the Brooks
anyway,
Academy.
It's a very large one, and that this facility with training programs that are occurring even as early as high school, this could be a positive thing for them. You've also got, I think San Antonio Independent School District's opened up a school there on the campus too, as well as a school of Incarnate Word. So it ties together with some of many of the other manufacturing activities that they have going on out there. I have some concern about how you're branding this thing. I think this is going to be more than just Texas Fame, and it's Bexar County. It's Bexar County. I mean, Texas Fame can be in that, but Texas Fame is only one little small program. It's not, doesn't take in some of the programs that David has started with respect to a lower skill training rather than the 2-year program that Texas Fame is famous for. So I think we need to brand that as Bexar County, and maybe Texas Fame is certainly a part of it, but it has some real potential, and I think it's going to be important as y'all develop the programming that will occur in there, how our partnership with, how many companies you have in Texas Fame now? 9 or so, I think, or something like that. That we make sure we've got the right participation by the private sector, as well as we need some partnerships with the schools out there too, I think.
We just added another company yesterday, Tower Manufacturing. They do microchip manufacturing on the far west side. I believe it's in your district precinct, Commissioner Clay Flores. So I think we're up to 10 now and still adding, and we have more to go.
Yeah.
Judge, let me echo your thoughts. I think that's very wise. With the branding of the Bexar County, Texas fame for the bill. Let me ask Marmon Mock on your wayfinding and other kinds of design. Can you incorporate? I'm sure it's pretty easy to stamp. That wouldn't be an issue with everything we're doing, right?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, sir. That's absolutely an easy thing for us to do, and it certainly makes sense. Bexar County is leading the development of this project, that they should have a prominent role in terms of how it's branded, and that's something that we'll be happy to work with Dan and Facilities and Economic Development on.
Well, I thank Dan and the staff for reviewing this. I saw the Norman Mark presentation. It was very good. So I don't know if anyone else has any other comments. I'll move approval.
Well, just real quick, for the record, Dan, the gentleman from Marmon Mock, if you could just come back and identify yourself.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Bryant Harkowitz. I'm a partner with Marmon Mock, and I'll be leading the overall effort for the project. With me I brought is Angel Garcia, also a partner with Marmon Mock and leads our design effort. And Art Mendoza is a senior project manager with Marmon Mock, and he'll be our point person taking care of leading the project, working with Dan's group.
Okay, great. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Will Marmon Mock be subcontracting?
Yes, ma'am. We'll have design consultants involved in the project, MEP engineers, civil engineer, landscape architect, structural engineer. Yes, ma'am.
So I just really want to encourage you guys to make sure you subcontract with small, minority-owned, women-owned, and veteran-owned businesses, and make sure we support a diversity of subcontractors and not just the same people we always give contracts to.
Sure. Marmon Mock, we're very familiar with working with the City of San Antonio, Bexar County, other public agencies, and we certainly respect and understand the goals relative to incorporating and supporting small business, minority business development, and that will certainly be a priority for us.
Great. So Renee Watson would be a very good person for you guys to connect with. Renee Watson over the Swim Bee program would be a very good person for you guys to connect with if you haven't already done so.
Yeah, we'll work with economic development and with Dan's group to look through those and make sure that we're hitting
Thank
targets.
you.
Do you already have your swim bee team sorted out already?
We've gone through multiple consultants already that we're proposing to target for this project. Recently, we worked with Bexar County on the Public Works office building, and that was a very successful project, we believe, and several of those consultants are working with us on that project as well.
Well, one of the things that, there's no legal requirement on that. I thank the Commissioner for her very wisely said comments. Of course, a lot of the services, businesses, and architectural engineering didn't qualify for lift fund grants and things of that nature. So things have been slow. Hopefully they got their PPP, but that may not have happened. And so we want to make sure that it would be a shame, being in the southeast side, if some of those vendors weren't located there or in the southeast or around Precinct 4. But certainly, we just welcome the deepening of relationships with swim bees, and so I appreciate the Commissioner's call for that, and we'll work to help you. So we'll follow up on that, and I move approval.
Thank you.
I think Renee could be a big help to you too in sorting them out, Renee Watson.
Will Marmon Mock be willing to participate in the Mentor Protege program? That's a great way to expand your relationships. I think they've tried to get you to get in there for years, but would you all be willing to participate in the Bexar County Mentor Protege program?
Yes, certainly. Well, we're not unfamiliar with those types of programs. We've worked with those in the past with, for example, Jerry Noriega's firm. Marmon Mock had a relationship with him and a mentor protege, and also with Steve Patman's firm. We worked with him before. Mm-hmm. So that's certainly an opportunity that we welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, I move approval.
Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Let me make one parting comment. I don't know what your timeline on construction. I would assume somewhere close to a year or so when we get the plans and finally construct. So, David, you have 1 year to put this program together right. This, to me, when we're targeting, I know job training is such an amorphous subject, and it can get lost, and most of them are failures across the nation. Most are failures, not successful. And so we need to be very precise about what's going to happen in there, who's responsible to make it happen, what partnerships we will have there, what sort of equipment do we need there. Otherwise, all we have is nothing but a meeting space. And so we got to think it out right. And building is great, but you're going to have to make darn sure this is nailed down right.
Well, the one thing we do in that area, Judge, and it's always at your direction, it's private sector driven. If they don't want it, we don't do it. If they ask us to do it, we try to find a way to make it happen. So that's Pooja's strength, is in developing those relationships with their private sector partners, because ultimately they have to buy the product, if you will. They have to take the trained individual and give them a job.
Yep.
And they have to help us with the on-the-job training and other things. So we're very committed. That's why it was branded Texas Fame, but I appreciate that it really will be broader than that and should be branded appropriately. But this is a private sector-driven initiative from the get-go, and should always be that.
Yeah. Okay, item number 51.
I have one more quick workforce item, if I could, while we're here on the topic. I wanted you all to be aware that we have completed the COVID workforce program. We are closing the front door because we have enough people in the pipeline to complete the funding. So you may, just in case you get a call, Workforce Solutions Alamo will be taking their social media messaging down, as well as the others. We will have expended all the dollars. We trained about 225 so far. There's another 193 in the pipeline, and there's about another 400 or so that are earlier in the process, about to select training or somewhere before that. With all of those folks in, we will have consumed the program completely. So,
David, real quick on that before we move on. I know as part of that deployment, we had to hire, I think, some temporary workers and things like that, particularly for the rental assistance program, I think. What I just want to, I know you're already aware of this, but, we're getting ready to receive potentially some significant dollars. So I think it's important we figure out what we did right and what we did wrong during the deployment of the $79 million, and be ready to figure out how we're going to get the next tranche, so to speak, into the community. So just keep that in mind. I wanted to mention that.
We're taking the charge of that. Yeah. My team is meeting at least twice a week to discuss, at the whole group. They're meeting in subgroups as well to figure out the next steps. And then we had an all meeting with DA, auditor, purchasing, budgeting, everybody else, to kind of have a conversation about how we can best be suited up to do that. So we'll be bringing you back some recommendations, hopefully as early as next court meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me just, while we're on this point of CARES Act, for the court's knowledge, ACOG, we decided to apply for a mortgage assistance program. We know a lot of people, because of the inability to work in hospitality or whatever, are defaulting on their mortgages. We hadn't set one up or applied in Bexar County, so I asked David and his office to apply for Bexar County, so that it won't just be rental assistance, but also folks who have fallen on hard times with their mortgages will be able to save them, and we won't have the vulture capitalists trying to steal people's homes from under them. So thank you, David, for applying, and we look forward to administering that program.
Okay. All right, thank you. Item number 51, discussion and appropriate action regarding final evaluation scoring request for proposal for the waste disposal service pilot program.
They don't? Okay.
Go ahead.
Want to introduce it? There's a lot of them. Because I'm new to some of them.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. My name is Jason Burgos. I'm a senior contract specialist with the Bexar County Purchasing Department, and I'm here to talk about RFP event number 769, Waste Disposal Services Pilot Program for Precinct 4. I also have a representative from the department, Mr. Javier Flores here,
Hi, good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners, Court, and staff. I am the Interim Director for Environmental Services.
Okay. So we began conversations developing this RFP back in April, May. There was a combination of a retirement of an employee, COVID as well, when we heavily ramped it up around September, October, developing the scope of work, looking at the areas that were going to be serviced as well for this RFP. It culminated on December 3rd, 2020. We released the RFP to the public. It was an expedited timeline. We received four proposals, one from C6 Disposal Systems, Cowboy Waste, Frontier Waste Solutions, and Tiger Sanitation. Within that time frame between January 15th and February 25th, there were clarifications that were received from the respondents of the proposal. There was an evaluation done, as well as scoring, which takes me to my next slide. And on the committee, by the way, the representatives on the committee were from the Environmental Services Department, the Auditor's Office, and the Budget Department. So, as you can see, we provided also a score sheet, an example of the score sheet, the finalized score sheet that was done. The highest ranked vendor was Frontier Waste Solutions. They came out at an 88.4. We opted to move forward with Frontier Waste as far as developing an agreement, hence why we're here today, requesting a motion to direct staff to negotiate an agreement with the highest ranked vendor. Before we continue, Mr. Javier Flores has a presentation as well.
Thank you, Jason. No, come up here. Come up here. Click down. In 2009, Bear Met Water District discontinued the waste management billing services. Soon after, the trash began piling up in Camelot 2. Next. Here's some examples of the illegal dumping in the Camelot 2 area. Next. In 2015, Bexar County and the City of San Antonio Municipal Solid Waste Program entered into a 3-year pilot program. In 2018, COSA agreed to extend the program to a year-to-year basis. The City of San Antonio and the county agreed that June 30th, 2021, the solid waste program will transition to Bexar County for the new solid waste division under environmental services. Mandatory trash was a huge success. We saw a reduction in crime by 53%, stray animal population by 75%, and illegal dumping by 74%. Here are the 5 proposed subdivisions for the solid waste program: Glen North, Crownwood, Camelot 2, Glen South, and Candlewood. Now, there will be some challenges with this program. Vendors may not legally be bound to withdraw from the neighborhoods they are currently servicing, but inquiries have shown that the residents in some areas are currently paying more than the proposed prices. How do we identify the responsible parties? Bexar County Appraisal District maintains all the records and property owner's address. If a resident or renter refuses to enroll, Bexar County may bill the property owner, who is ultimately responsible. What happens if the owner is delinquent on payment? Current legislation states Commissioners Court may adopt orders to enforce requirements, including order in establishing a civil or administrative penalty. Violation of the court order is a Class C misdemeanor. It's punishable for, with a fine not to exceed $500. How do we get 100% of the 3,700 homes enrolled in the new solid waste program? We're going to do door-to-door notifications, door hangers for advertisement for the program in advance, and public meetings held by the solid waste hauler who was awarded the contract. How do we track in-house billing and collection? Trash Flow is a third-party billing software company. It's estimated between $3,000 to $4,000 for this software license that we need to purchase. Here's an organizational chart showing the 4 positions for the solid waste program for the new solid waste division under environmental services. This is an estimated initial cost factor of the program, approximately $365,000, which would include vehicles, equipment for the office, and personnel and salaries. Now that this can be partially funded through the program. Our requested action today is we're asking for motion A and approval to negotiate with the highest ranking vendor, and motion B for approval for personnel and equipment, and graphics for environmental vehicles for the solid waste program.
Commissioner Calvert's been the leader on this effort. Commissioner, you have thoughts on this?
Thank you very much, Judge. Just for the education of the court, the county was spending about $500,000 a year on trash pickup. And when I came to the court, I said to myself, we've been putting a Band-Aid on this, and we need to figure out the permanent solution. Since this is a chronic expenditure that the county has taken on, it doesn't make sense just to have these dumpster days and not deal with it. And because of that, it's been a huge cost savings to the county in this particular department. In fact, this program thus far has been revenue neutral. We have never had to use any of the money we set aside to shore up the program from any delinquencies. We're disappointed, that politics got in the way of the CPS and SAWS adopting this. But we have a great solution from the Environmental Services Department on how to do billing. The technology and the process is very good. This is an award-winning program. And as I said earlier, where SAWS should be working with us. I used to do the PR for Bear Met Water District, and I always say it was the best PR that they ever had. And I have stories about them. But in any event, so that's a disappointment that legacy isn't continued by SAWS, and it still could be. It still could be. There may be changes at some of these utilities and in leadership, but there's no doubt that this is a cost saver. With the way we will be able to actually have a fee for the county pay for this, so it will be, I think, between $3 and $6 that we'll add on so that we can make this pretty much revenue neutral for the county. So it's a program that we think is basically going to pay for itself. It probably will more than pay for itself because of the money that we used to spend on the dumpsters and all of that manpower and responding to stray animals and responding to all kinds of crime and everything else that used to happen. So this is kind of like when Rudy Giuliani said, the broken window syndrome, focus on that and clean it up, and a lot of things followed in terms of prosperity. We did the same thing at Bexar County. And so this is the next level. We had looked at other areas of the county. This problem isn't exactly rampant all over the county. Most people are taking care of their own trash bills, but we have areas where there's more poverty, where they're not. And so this still has the obligation. So I want to ask the Environmental Services Division to come to court with the penalty, up to $500, make a future penalty scenario so that we can hold any offenders for not paying their bill accountable under the misdemeanor Class C laws. And so I will move approval of the negotiation for Event 769 and also move approval for personnel and equipment in support of the solid waste program.
Got a motion? Do I have a second? Got a motion and a second? All those in favor will say aye. Suppose no. The ayes have it. Congratulations, guys. Go to work.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good work
Judge.
you're doing. Good work. Good leadership, Tommy. Thank you for doing this. Item number 52, ratification submission of electronic grant application to substance abuse and mental health services.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Mike Lozito. I'm the Director of the Office of Criminal Justice. And today we're coming to you with a recast, what we call recast San Antonio grant through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Exactly. That's
On there. Currently, we have a grant through SAMHSA for what we call Phase 1 of the San Antonio recast. So just to recap it, it's a 5-year grant with no cash match, a little over $800,000 per year, addressing high-risk youth, families who have faced civil unrest due to law enforcement, economic factors, and trauma. The grant targeted the Promise Zone area, East Side, Bexar County, and has contracted with West Care, and I have Beverly Watts Davis here, who's the CEO for West Care San Antonio, and also Alan Castro, who's our grant writer who wrote this tremendous grant.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Can you have someone advance the
Okay.
slides, please?
Thank you, David. So on there, the grant on the Promise Zone area, and then also with the San Antonio Fighting Back, which provides direct services. Year 1 of the grant, we addressed developing a strategic plan by establishing a coalition of Eastside community leaders, government officials to conduct a needs assessment on there. So we finalized and recast to develop a strategic plan which focuses on 4 main areas. The police and community relationships, justice-involved individuals, youth at risk, and expanding mental health and trauma services for the Promise Zone area. So year 1, basically, the last 5 years, San Antonio Fighting Back has provided direct services to justice-involved individuals and families, assisting with employment, training, utilities, assistance, housing, schools, and a number of social services. The contract, also contracting with AmeriCorps to provide 710 AmeriCorps members to assist with mentoring programs, summer programs, schools, and community meetings. Community capacity opportunities and investment in programs that address the strategic plan and provide sustainability. So what I mean by community capacity is that this is an investment within that the grant allows to make an investment to expand services within the community. So one of the ones that we did was Crosspoint, where West Care, or through the grant, we had funded 2 mental health clinicians on there to help sustain their program, and that currently has carried on with us funding that first initial year on there. They have been able to fund those clinicians, and they've also opened up a 35-bed behavioral health facility to over there off of Hackberry to work with individuals with mental health issues. Support of Martin Luther King Dream Week activities, Pathways to Hope, which is part also the county partners with the group, which is a free community conference on mental health, education, and programs. One of the things that I'm real proud about that Beverly has worked real close with is doing the Bridges to Care. I hope to be able to bring this to you in May when we have mental health. But this is working actually with the churches, and I think, what do we have, over 40 churches that we're working with in the different precincts that are bringing this Bridges to Care out of St. Louis model to San Antonio to work with people with mental health issues. Because what they do is they find that about 71% of the individuals that have mental health issues go to a priest or a pastor for advice, and a lot of times they don't get the right advice. So this helps with education and having groups within churches that can help meet the mental health expectations. Also, we work with My Brother's Keeper San Antonio to develop restorative disciplinary processes to address adverse childhood experiences and trauma at Sam Houston High School and with the Circles program. Year 4 has been a little bit different because we've had to pull back from the working with the high schools because of the contact, and West Care and San Antonio Fighting Back did a tremendous job of really mobilizing very quickly to address the issues for unemployment, for helping them file for unemployment. They set up a hub. David Smith was instrumental in helping us to get some computers and some hotspots that we were able to use at Ella Austin facility for the gym area and to save space in that area. They had food drives, daycare. They were also able to mobilize door to door to go and hand out hangers, provide masks and education for individuals that didn't have contact, because as you know, some of the areas, especially Promise Zone, don't have the digital connectivity that a lot of other areas of the city do. So we wanted to make sure that they were properly informed and educational on COVID. We're currently in year 5. So this new grant is another 5-year grant. It continues to address high-risk youth families who have faced civil unrest due to law enforcement, economic factors, and trauma. The 5-year grant is for $1 million per year. We're going to expand the zip codes out of the Promise Zone areas to include 78211 on the south side and 78207 on the west side, and then go up 35 to 78217 northeast. Year 1 will work with the new zip code communities to develop a strategic plan. The grant will provide the county with an opportunity to develop a blueprint to address local community needs by collaborating with local organizations, schools, law enforcement, and neighborhood associations. So this grant will give us that opportunity to work hand in hand with those local organizations, and then if we have any of these disasters or any of these other things that come up, we'll be able to mobilize very quickly in working with those local communities. So today we're asking, a recommendation is to ratification of a submission of an electronic grant application to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, for FY 2021 Resiliency in Communities After Stress and Trauma for the Bexar County Recast Program in the amount of $5 million with no local matching requirements and acceptance of the funds if awarded. The term of the grant will be through October 1st, 2021 through September 30th of 2026.
Do I have a motion?
So let me just ask, Beverly Watts Davis to come to the podium. She is one of the best, if not, along with Alan Castro, one of the best grant writers in the United States, and I want to thank her because she was able to get an appropriation through Congress to continue funding this. We are the only city in the country that will be doing this, and she's, a former administrator over U.S. drug prevention policy for President Bush and President Clinton. So we're very fortunate to have her, and also helped lead the Texas War on Drugs with Governor Richards. So she has bipartisan support, and we did a lot of good work. I will say to the court that this grant, the first 5 years of this grant, put probably about $800 to $1 million into the general fund of Bexar County as a fee that we received. This will do the same. We'll have about $1 million that will go into the general fund. And that's rare for a politician to put some money back into the fund, but thanks to your help, Beverly, we're able to put some more money back into the fund. Well, what we need to do is try to get a kind of a sub-account to make sure that some of the goals that allowed us to get this money into the general fund, that money increase some of our social services. It isn't a stretch for me to expand this program into a few zip codes because even though I am what I call a precinct 4 nationalist, and I spend my time and resources. I have a lot of friends. As someone who has worked in the community for my entire life, I have friends in all of your precincts. And when they call upon me, obviously I tell them you've got to go to the commissioner, but I'll help you and support them and all that kind of thing. So part of what I explained to Mike is that each commissioner that is now part of this, we need to work together to raise additional resources to supplement this outreach. And so I know that, I'd love to, sit down with my colleagues and explain a little bit more about what we've done. And Beverly, and you can certainly, I would be happy to have you join in explaining that. I was just telling Commissioner DeBerry that we share, for example, 78217 in zip code. And so, I went to St. Mary's Hall down the street from Cerna Elementary, and as a young teenager, I used to tutor the young people who were brought from public housing into that neighborhood. Their second-generation families are still there. And so Cerna has some of the highest, I think, truancy and scores and things of that nature. We can do things to help shore up in that corridor, even over, up Clear Springs Elementary, and I have to get the boundary of 78217. I basically know it because I grew up in it. And then also on the south side, I work with Commissioner Clay Flores on the needs in that zip code, and Commissioner Rodriguez, I have tentacles in 78207 with the West End Hope Action Group, which my family helped start in 78207, and we will continue to help that very distressed zip code through this. We'll work together. But we want to thank you, Beverly, and you want to say a word about why we're doing this?
Well, again, I just want to be able to say good morning to you all, and I am truly want to just first say thank you, Commissioner Calvert, for everything, but also I want to just say I'm so thrilled to see our new commissioners. I'm just thrilled. So it's great to see you, and that doesn't mean not you, Commissioner Rodriguez. You and Judge still love you, but I'm just really great to see the ladies there. But I do want to be able to say one of the very important things is that we have had 5 years to be able to really figure out best practices, and one of them I want to just share with you all. We had we actually dealt with the in-school truancy youth. These were in-school suspension youth, and one of the things we've been wanting to make sure of is that instead of just kicking young people out, because when we let them go like that, we can guarantee you there are going to be other people on a negative side who will recruit them. So our goal was to make sure that if nothing else, that these young people got their GEDs, because at least that way we could get them work, we could help them be productive. I'm very pleased to tell you all, in the very first, in our years through here, in the 3 years of doing this, in the very first year, we had 100% success. Every single young person that we worked with, every single one, got their GED. In the second year, we had a 98% success rate. We had 2 young people who unfortunately were arrested. But in the third year, we were back up at 99%. The difference between, in fact, there are 3 of them that we just recently hired on another project. But it's just wonderful to be able to see that you can actually, these are game changers. If we can help people get their education, we can do that. But also, too, just being the tremendous collaborations in terms of using whatever resources we have, wherever they are, and being able to leverage them to be able to address a community's problem. And the beauty of this, and I want to thank special kudos to Mike for rolling with us, and I cannot thank Alan enough for being there with me, staying up all night to making sure we get these things in. But the beauty of this is to be able to work with the community to decide what they find is their number one problem, and then working with them to actually address that. Because truly, people will support what they help create, and we want to help them create solutions, because that's how we will sustain this. And so, again, we have taken some things that we have actually worked, very simple things such as lighting up a block, putting porch lights on the entire block because they didn't have street lights, totally reducing the robbery rates in an area, being able to actually work with focusing in neighbors to work with building up the neighborhood associations. So again, I just want to be able to say that what we love about this program is that this really is about real community capacity building. And that's what we want to be able to support, because that's what will be sustained. So I'm totally open to any questions. Thank you,
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Beverly, not only for the work you've done here, but we worked together for more than just a few years. So thank you for everything you've done. Do we have a motion on this?
Can I say, first of all, it's so good to see you.
It's so good
and
to see you.
I'm so glad that you were not in San Antonio for a while, and we worked together when you were here before. So it's great to have you back here.
Yeah,
so I
it's
appreciate
good to
the
be
work that you're doing, because this is a program that's much needed. Mike Lazito, thank you for coming personally one-on-one to be able to brief me on the impact of the program. I look forward to seeing future impact. And as a side note, Commissioner Calvert, I actually am a graduate of Cerna Elementary, and I grew up in the Fairfield Neighborhood Association, which is very close by. So, all that being said, that area is very near and dear to my heart, because those are where my formative years were spent. So I look forward to working with you on the program.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we've got work we can do with Kim Youngblood, and I've gotten that Arby's on the corner of Perrin Vital to do little fundraisers for the school and things like that. We'll have more of that. It'll be fun. Yeah.
Right. And Judge, I did want to also just say to you, it is this grant had flexibility. One of the key things when you immediately started with COVID, one of the key things that you talked about is the need for blood. I will be able to say in our particular community, the South Texas Blood Mobile had actually never been literally come into the East Side. We were able to partner with them and be able to actually help increase the levels up to what they needed to be in terms of being able to get blood. And then we're also working with the University Health System in terms of getting people vaccinated. So I'm really pleased. We're working with Dr. Diana Burns and Francine Pross and certainly Dr. Hernandez. And just in literally matters of months, I don't want to I don't know the exact number, but I know we're well over 2,000 in helping to get people there, to get vaccinated, get them through, get them. And so I just want you to know it has had the ability to pivot really well. And I just thank you all so very, very much. And special thanks to Dwayne Robinson, who helped us make sure we got all this in toward the end.
Yeah,
So thank you.
The big key for my commissioners is, when we were designing this 5 years or 6 years ago, maybe, I sat down and really we had a strategic plan and we went through great detail. And you want to do that. You don't want to try to do too much too fast. You want to grow in a sustained way. Sam says one of the federal agencies I used to work for. I don't know if you had anything to do with it. I don't know if you were there when I was doing contract work, but in any event, West Care Foundation is a very valuable resource for us. I believe the largest mental health provider west of the Mississippi and the West Coast, and so we're fortunate to have your talents and your team. And thank you all for putting together. There's a motion on the floor.
Motion, to have a second? Motion second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Item number 53, discussion appropriate action regarding budget transfers.
Thank you.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. My name is Tanya Gaitan, Budget Manager for the Budget and Finance Department. Today I'll be presenting to you the fiscal year 2019-20 end-of-year budget transfers. The end-of-year budget transfers are required by the auditors in order to complete their annual audit. Our job with these transfers is to make each appropriation, which is a group of accounts, whole within each budget. This is required by law to make those negative balances to zero. The total budget transfer amount for this for fiscal year 19-20 is $3.1 million. And just to make a note on that, this does not impact the carry forward balance into the fiscal year 2021 adopted budget. It was all allocated and estimated for this coming year.
Tanya, can you?
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry. The next slide, the justifications for the transfers. Include cost of living increases. These were budgeted within the contingency budget. We have state-mandated tenure pay for the county court judges, which was required by state law. That was also funded in contingencies. We had payments for retirees who opted out for the early retirement incentive program last year. We also authorized new positions for the Criminal Justice Department for the PBOs to man the GPS and domestic violence sections. This was also funded in contingencies. We also are transferring for an increase in water usage for the Adult Detention Center and also a plexiglass installation project for the Budget Department. Funding in the amount of $1.6 million will be transferred from contingencies. The remaining $1.5 million will be transferred from within each respective budget. The next slide shows the details by department. The first department that we'll be transferring funding into is the Criminal District Attorney's Office in the amount of $751,210. $27,000 of that was unbudgeted. This was due to overtime costs for prosecutors who worked at the new central magistration section. They work nights and weekends in that area. The second office and department is juvenile probation in the amount of $745,103. This is for cost of living adjustments, which were budgeted in contingencies. Office of Criminal Justice Policy and Planning, we are transferring $552,556. About $118,000 was unbudgeted. This was due to an increase in the current GPS contract due to the number of defendants increasing last year, as well as cost of living adjustments and the new pretrial bond officers. The next department is the Energy Management Department, which is reported to facilities in the amount of $378,866. This was due to an increase at the Adult Detention Center to increased cleanings for last year. The next department is Facilities Management Adult Detention Center in the amount of $205,278. This was for cost of living increases and lower than anticipated turnover within the department. The next one is Medical Examiner in the amount of $195,555. $29,000 of that was unbudgeted. This was due to an overage to the ERIP program, the ERIP disbursements rather, and cost of living adjustments. The next one is the Facilities Management County Buildings. We are transferring $161,901. This is for cost of living adjustments and lower than anticipated turnover within the department. The final transfers for county courts at law, $127,947. This is due to the cost of living adjustments and also the tenured state mandated pay for the county court judges, for the total amount of $3.1 million. So today, the Budget Department is requesting for the approval of the attached transfers for fiscal year 2019 end-of-year budget transfers. That's the end of my presentation.
All right. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Motion second. All those in favor will say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Item number 54, discussion and appropriate action regarding Bexar County's legislative program.
Hey, Judge, while Melissa's coming up, it occurred to me a minute ago that when we were discussing the plumbing program, I should have also brought up that David and Renee's teams are doing this with zero overhead.
Mm-hmm.
Every dollar is going for assistance.
Yeah, I'm sure Saws would like to charge us about 15% if we'd have gone through that.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the need to ramp up. I mean, if they need to ramp up a little administrative, we just don't want to have people waiting too long. So let's just make sure that our response times are good.
Renee reports the response. We haven't had a backlog yet,
Okay.
But if we'll come back to you just like Javier did for environmental services if we find we need to or we're burning people out.
All right.
All right, Miss Legislative Aide to Bexar County.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Melissa Shannon with the County Manager's Office. What Thomas is passing out to you is the booklet that we get at each beginning of each session that has each legislator and their picture and locations. It's a really good book to carry with you if you are able to come up to the Capitol, because it'll tell you exactly where their offices are, and it's got maps in there, but also it's got contact information. So it's just a good handy book to have.
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you.
So we are finally starting to see things move at the Capitol. Committee hearings began in earnest really yesterday. I think there were 5 or 6 committees that I was in and out of that had bills that may affect the county or related to our items. So it's exciting because for those of you who don't know me well enough, I'm very hyperactive. And I'm like a racehorse, so I want to go. And this was really, I told Thomas that this whole session up until probably yesterday was starting to mess with my mental well-being, I guess. I don't want it to sound that drastic, but I didn't know what to do with myself because I wanted to be busier. So now we're getting to that point. However, I will say that, and this could be good or bad for us, I think it's good. We already knew that we were going to kind of be behind things with COVID issues, and now with the ERCOT and PUC and blackouts and all of that that has happened recently, that has since added to the amount of bill or the types of bills that are being filed that don't necessarily directly affect what we do, but maybe, I'm hoping, that will keep some of the bad issues or local control items where they try and come after counties. Maybe that'll kind of keep those kind of issues on the back burner. So I'm trying to look at that in a positive light. Friday is what we call the 60-day filing deadline. So Friday it's the end of bill filing. I think last night, I think there were 290 bills that were filed just yesterday alone. So this week will be really crazy with all, trying to get those bills across the finish line and get filed. Ledge Council, the lawyers that draft the bills, they're really backed up. They were already backed up because of COVID and being shorthanded and working from home. So we still have a bill pending in Ledge Council. One of our items is still pending. So we'll see what happens this week. We've got over 4,400 bills that have been filed to date. I had shared in a recent email the lieutenant governor, and as well as Governor Abbott. I can't remember when I spoke to y'all the last time if I talked about the governor's emergency items, but for sure in I think my last email or the one before that, I shared with you the lieutenant governor's priority items, and there are 31 items. Those items have not all been filed yet, but one of them that is on our agenda is for broadband, statewide broadband capability, and that's got a very low number, which is good, Senate Bill 5, and that bill has also been filed in the House. So I think something, hopefully, will get across the finish line on that for our constituents.
But what does that really mean?
I know, well, they will set, there's no funding yet.
That's what I'm talking about.
You like how I start stammering?
That's what I want to know. That's right.
But it might be there. We're going to keep hope alive.
Anyway.
Yes. Yes. One of the bad items that has already been filed out of the Senate priorities is Senate Bill 21, and that is their so-called bail reform. And since this is a family program, I will not tell you what our public defender texted me when I emailed that to him last Saturday. It got filed on Friday. I emailed it to Michael Young on Saturday to ask him to take a quick look at it. And he has a few choice words for me in email and thanked me for ruining his Saturday having to look at that bill. It's horrendous.
Can you explain a little bit more what is going on?
Yeah, so that bill in particular was filed by Senator Huffman. She's Harris County delegation. She's a former judge, former district court judge. So basically, the way Michael has explained it to me, it would render people ineligible for a personal bond. It wouldn't allow, I think there are some organizations, some nonprofits in the community that raise bond money to help, people who have a low bond but aren't able to get out of, bond out. It would not allow these organizations to raise this bond money and to help people get out of jail.
Oh, how flagrant.
Oh,
my God.
You can't have, where was it? You can't get a personal bond if you have multiple offenses. And apparently most everyone that gets into jail we host in the ADC has multiple offenses.
Almost everything.
Yeah, so
almost everything will have more than one charge.
It would just kill the person with Cousins fine.
Yeah. Says that judges can create a bail schedule, and that's what the Fifth Circuit has said is unconstitutional. So
does the Texas Research Legislative Board, do they have a fiscal impact on this? I'm starting to project a high fiscal impact on local counties. It's an unfunded mandate.
Yeah, TAC, Texas Association of Counties, is really good about putting together fiscal notes for us. I don't know the answer, but I'm assuming, yes, there is a fiscal note, so I'll ask to get a hold of that.
Yeah, let's see if we can get it early. Since I worked at the legislature, I think that that entity has become a bit more politicized, correct? I don't. Is that I'm talking about the Texas Legislative Research Board? What do they call it? The one that they may have changed the name.
LBB.
Well, it's the one that does the analysis for the legislature.
Yes, Legislative Budget Board.
Has it become more politicized, that entity, or is it like the Congressional Budget Office, a bit more straight?
No. I find
last session. Go ahead.
I would. My personal opinion is it has, Commissioner.
Yeah,
but keep in mind the LBB, when they look at fiscal analysis and fiscal impact, it's related to the state. They could care less how it impacts local communities. So I think that's where we have to rely on TAC and other organizations to help us with that. Their singular focus is there a fiscal impact to the state, right? But there were some appointments, to your point. There were some appointments, and there was some, not just the board, but the staff. I think there was a resignation. My last session there, I can't remember her name. Ursula Parks was kind of forced out. and anybody can speculate as to why, but I think it's become a little bit more politicized.
Their information seems to be skewed and not in our favor.
And that's a terrible thing. We need to know the real data. That's what public policy leaders are supposed to do. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I'll ask for the fiscal note on that. One of the others that you may have, I think I shared in my last email, this one as well, is HB3 by Representative Burrows. That is pandemic disaster response. There is a meeting actually occurring right now with the counties to really delve into that bill, so I'll get a better read on it this afternoon when I get back together with everyone. But what worries me about that one is that the way the statute that we're currently under with disasters, Judge Wolf, or the county judge, is the disaster management coordinator, director, whatever it's called in statute, for the full county. Well, with this HB3, and it only relates to pandemics, though, it would open that up to where it's not only Judge Wolf, but it's also the mayors of each city. So I think we have, 27 or 28 with the city of San Antonio. So you could have 29 differing opinions of what their constituents need to do in that particular community. Now, maybe the mayors would defer to Judge Wolf, but I don't know. So that's something that's very scary about that bill. The other one is...
Melissa, it's not scary. It's just Louisiana.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
David's got it under control then. He understands it. Another item is makes officers, employees, volunteers of a local agency a member of the Texas Military Forces ordered into active service. Okay, so are they going to pay for these officers, employees, when they pull them into service? How does that affect? What if we have a workman's comp? I mean, there's just a lot of questions that we've got.
Who is that again? I just want to make sure I heard you right. No, who would be called into service?
Officers, employees, volunteers of a local agency.
Are going to be working for the state now?
Made a member of the Texas Military Forces and ordered into active service.
Officers? You don't mean, it doesn't say uniformed officers or peace just any official.
Any one of us.
Any official can be conscripted into duty.
Well, you better get ready to get the Texas Republic back. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. Jesus.
So those are just a few of the items that I wonder. I'm not going to go through the full bill, but HB3, disaster orders in a pandemic. There is also a bill that was filed in the Senate. It's kind of counteracts this one. Senate Bill 1025 that was filed by Birdwell, and it's got 14 others that signed on to it, and 2 of those are actually Democrats. So when the pandemic began early on, there was calls for the governor to call us into special session and try and figure out, how we were going to handle the situation. So that's what this bill does. It requires the governor to call the legislature into a special session to respond to, a declared disaster. So we'll see. Our initiatives, we have everything but one item filed. The item that I don't have filed yet is the vehicle registration election, to try and see if we would be able to put that item on a ballot to ask the voters if they would be amenable to paying another $10 in vehicle registration fee so we can raise money. I'm not really that worried about that item getting filed. I think we might have a better chance of amending it onto another bill. There are several similar bills that it would be germane to, so I'm not sweating that one as much.
Did we add that to our agenda?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Cite and release is really the big one this session that I'm trying to push. I don't have high hopes for it because of everything else that we're facing. I knew that was an uphill battle. I've been working with the DA. We actually had a meeting last week with the San Antonio Police Officers Association, Mr. Diaz, that is the new president. There are several items in that list of items that we would like added to the statute that his organization has issue with. So we'll probably scale some of that back. So we're still the bill has been filed. It's been assigned to a committee. So I'm assuming once we get to a committee, I hope we'll have all that worked out and we'll have a committee substitute that everyone can get on board with and get behind us and not fight us on it.
Melissa,
Yes,
has there been any talk about using the rainy day fund to help with the expenses related to the the weather disaster, or is there comments from any senators or committees?
Not that I've heard.
So we're going to, you don't anticipate any use of the rainy day fund? And you can't tell, right?
Yeah, I can't, yes.
So what about elections laws? What kind of arcane elections laws are coming? Anything?
There are, I can't even remember, probably 150, 200 bills that have been filed to date.
Wow.
I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I don't get a lot of feedback on those bills. So I'm leaning on my associations to help me find the bad bills. So I'm leaning on TAC, especially with their elections administrators, to pull out the bad ones.
Do we have anything like what they're doing in Georgia, where I think their canvassing boards can overrule the vote and things of that nature? Do we have anything like that popping up?
I'll go back. I do have a track of bills that anything that's election related, I've marked it, so I'll go back and run that track and see, and I'll pull it out for y'all too as well. It's in your bill filing or your tracking that I send to you weekly, but it's just all, those bills are all
What
intermixed in there.
about funding for the state hospital to finish the reconstruction of the state hospital?
That, I do believe, is in there in the budget. And, Judge, I think you sent a letter.
Yeah.
Yes, the judge, I was trying to remember who on the courts. A judge sent a letter to our delegation making sure that they remembered that.
I think that along with that funding, if we can slip in a rider where we add the ability for the state hospital to look at those acres on the San Antonio grounds for additional collaboration with local communities for the homeless. So, if you look at the state hospital, if anybody's driven out there, you've got a lot of open land where we could put, additional counseling or even areas for the homeless or things like that. So we need to work, I think, on something that can be added to that bill that gets that process moving forward so that that land isn't just sitting there for years, as it has been. Highest and best use. Got to get that on the radar of the state.
Okay.
Okay, that it?
Yes, sir. That's basically it. We'll see what this week brings, and
The greatest threat to local government is that bail reform bill.
Mm-hmm.
That will cost us literally millions and millions of dollars. And lock up people that can't afford it. It's, the bail bond industry is one of the most selfish, greediest industries I've seen around preying on people. It's just, I know that's where it came from.
That's what we're thinking.
I think that one we got to fight with all we have. We'll have a jail stacked up with homeless, a jail stacked up with mentally charged people, drug addiction. I mean, it's just crazy.
That one will definitely come out of the Senate, and it'll come over to the House. So,
That's really
it's a low bill number, so it's going to come our way. So we'll fight it.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question on redistricting. clearly the speaker, thought balancing the budget and redistricting were the priorities. I mean, as a result of COVID and as a result of the energy crisis that we're facing. I mean, I'm assuming there's probably going to be a special session.
There will be.
On redistricting, as well as a special session probably on energy. My question specific to redistricting, if there is a special session, and census being delayed, there's a domino effect associated with that, the way it affects primaries, and was that pushed back? Anyway, any information or insight you can provide on that is great.
Yeah, so the latest I've heard on redistricting is it definitely will be a special session because we have to wait for the numbers to come down, and that special session will occur in October, was the last I've heard.
Okay.
And I've also heard that there will be at least two special, so redistricting and another one. And I'm assuming about the electric issues. Lieutenant Governor Patrick was on, I don't know where I think maybe in the DFW area. I just saw it on the news this morning in Austin, that he's saying that the electric issues, ERCOT, PUC, whatever, will be fixed this session. Honestly, I don't see how it can totally be fixed because that's such a huge issue to get done between now and May 31st. Thoughtfully to get it right. But he says it will be fixed. But he's only in charge of one chamber, so.
Okay.
Melissa, to Commissioner DeBerry's inquiry regarding redistricting, I heard there was a federal law passed to take redistricting kind of out of the partisan hands that it's in, and I think it was through the John Lewis bill that was passed. Have you heard anything about?
No, sir.
Okay, but I would look into that because it may be that the federal law trumps some of the things that states can do now. It's, I think, just recently passed.
Okay.
You might want to take a look.
And I think there's a bill, Melissa. You can probably track it down. If you remember 2012. I remember it well because I was on the ballot. The primary got pushed from March to May. I think, and that was court ordered, right? That was because the DOJ intervened. But I think this time that may not be the case. But I think there's a bill, or at least one or two that have been filed, that would be contingent on redistricting not getting done by a certain time, therefore pushing the primary
There
back.
is.
So,
I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but yes, there is at least one that I'm aware of.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 55, presentation discussion regarding matters related to COVID-19.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners. Dan Curry, Director of Facilities Management. So in the recent weeks, everyone's been talking about reopening, returning to work, and all these other initiatives, some prompted by the state, some internally as well. And we've gotten several emails to our department about, hey, Dan, what have you done to make our facilities safer? How did you use these coronavirus relief funds? And so we thought it was appropriate to share with the court and really to the employees of Bexar County and the constituents exactly what we've done in the recent time frame when we were awarded those allotment of dollars. So I'll kind of walk through the history of it, what we've done, and then touch on some of the other county-owned facilities. When I say county-owned, I mean AT&T Center, CHCS, where the county has an ownership stake. So in May 2020, as you know, the Commissioners Court authorized about $5.4 million in funding from the CARES Act for us in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So there was basically in three categories. The first one was enhanced indoor air quality improvements. The second was enhanced screening and monitoring measures. And the third one is equipment and materials needed to respond to the event. When I'm talking about gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, all those other instruments that we can use to help mitigate any potential spread. So we immediately started to work on those measures in our 3 million county-owned square feet. So I'll give you a little breakdown of each one of those. Indoor air quality strategy. So there's a couple guiding documents that we used, mostly published by the CDC, one by the American Society of Heating and Refrigeration Association of America, and we also engaged an environmental consultant called Argus Environmental. They're an indoor air quality consultant, as well as Dr. Ruth Bergman, which I know was very prominent at the very beginning, providing us some health advice. So we came up with a strategy for indoor air quality, what we call dilute, filter, and kill. So we'll walk through each one of those strategies. So what we did is our HVAC controls in some of our buildings, just like your thermostat at home, we have the ability to manipulate how much fresh air we bring into a building, what's the mix is, and all those other devices in these commercial buildings. So we're really a two-prong approach because we have detention facilities that are totally different operationally than our regular administrative facilities. But the good news is in those detention facilities we have a smoke evacuation system. So it's largely purposed for evacuating smoke if there's a fire inside of that building, because we can't just evacuate the inmates down the fire stairs. Right? They have to stay in place. We have to battle. We have to defend the facility in place. So the smoke evacuation is a TCJS requirement, and we can use those fans to purge air, and it's primarily made to pull smoke out of the unit. Well, these are high volume, high capacity fans. You can see a picture of them in the PowerPoint. They're probably 2 to 3 feet round, and they have huge motors on them. What we're able to do with these systems is turn them on periodically for 10 or 15 minutes, twice a day. And what that does is that pulls all the stale air out of that unit and replaces it with fresh air from the air handling unit. So what we're doing is we're diluting the amount of potential respiratory droplets that are in that air through this what we call air purging cycle. So even before May, we started to do this in our detention facilities because those are our congregate facilities, and people know the closer you put people together, the faster the virus spread in the beginning of the pandemic. In Congress with that, on our administrative facilities, we have the ability to do with our controls, which is our highly automated computer system that runs our HVAC system. We pull air from the outside. Now, typically we'll pull maybe 70, 60% of outside air and then mix in the current air that's in the facility when we condition a building. And that complies with the 5 or 6 air changes per hour required by ASHRAE and recommended by the CDC. So what we did before is we turned all of those fresh air vents to 100% open, which means that we're pulling in 100% outside air as we possibly can, mixing with the interior air, and then reconditioning the area. So what we're doing is by bringing the extra air from the outside in, we're diluting even further the amount of respiratory droplets that are possibly in the air. So again, nothing is a certainty, nothing is a guarantee that there are no respiratory droplets in the air, but by these two measures, we're reducing drastically the percentage of those droplets in the air that we're circulating in the buildings. So the other thing we're doing is filtering. So early on, the CDC always did some tests, and they recommended, hey, listen, HEPA filters can trap this virus. Other filters can trap the virus, but they know HEPA for sure because of the micron size of the virus are guaranteed to do that. We cannot simply add HEPA filtration to our existing air handlers. Our air handlers are large, probably the size of a Volkswagen Bug in most cases, very large. They move high velocity of air. If we put HEPA filters in there, it will bog down the air transfer and then essentially burn out those motors. So we have traditional filters in there, which we think do a good job. But in order to provide that HEPA filtration in those larger population settings, we source 74 freestanding air scrubbing devices. So these are HEPA and charcoal filter devices that we put at our larger facilities. So if you're in the PET first floor lobby, you can see a freestanding unit there. In all of our isolation units at the jail, there's a hair scrubbing unit there. So not only in air purging, we're pulling air in. And so it's a real simple device. So if you look at the device on the screen, there's a grill in the front of it, and there's a fairly substantial motor that pulls air in through that HEPA filter and then pushes it back out the top. So again, we have 74 of these for deployment across the county, juvenile detention, adult detention. We initially have several ready for use if courtrooms begin to be used again. Now again, we don't imagine that there's going to be 40 or 50 people in for voir dire, but if you do have 15, 16, 17 people, maybe 20 people in for an actual hearing with jurors, we would obviously deploy one of these in that area to help with that filtration. And the last piece is what we call virus kill. So again, the county invested a substantial amount of money, about $1.7 million, adding UVC lighting to all of our air handlers. So when we talked to our indoor air quality consultant, I asked them, what do hospitals do? How do hospitals do it? We want to try to mirror that as best we possibly can. Hospitals use HEPA filtration and UVC. Obviously, HEPA was a difficult leg for us to jump on as we've discussed, but UVC is something we could do. So they recommend UVC lights on both ends of the cooling coil. So when we have refrigeration, there's a coil that the air blows across that, whether it's hot or cold, and again, that heats or cools the air, and then it transfers through the ducting. These lights are on both sides of that coil, so we capture the air as it's coming into that cooling environment and then back out. And this is installed in every air handler that we have in the county. We are finishing up the last couple air handlers at the jail, and then the entire county will be covered. This technology has a proven track record of killing the virus, So if it comes into contact with it, it will kill those respiratory droplets. So again, these are installed in all of our air handlers in county-owned buildings. So it works. We put it in this location because it works both heating and cooling. So all the air that gets translated through the ducts goes through these air handling systems. And so jumping on to some screening enhancements and other things we've done. As you may be aware, you guys walk up sometimes to the screening devices, or somebody from the sheriff's office will stop you. You get your temperature taken remotely from these thermal cameras, or you do a self-serving screening station. So the county invested in some of these things to make sure people who had fevers or people that had symptoms wouldn't be coming into facilities, again, further reducing the potential spread of that. The self-screening kiosk is something I think we were very beneficial and very valuable in deploying. We have a lot of facilities, and we have staff entrances in some of those facilities, and we were able to open up some of those entrances for staff to self-screen. So at the Public Works building, for instance, there's a side door. I come in that, and there's a kiosk. I hit the kiosk. I answer 2 screening questions for medical. Have I traveled? Do I have any symptoms? If I answer no to both of those, it takes my temperature, and then it checks if I'm wearing a mask. So it captures all of those bases to make sure that everyone coming in that building is as safe as they possibly can be.
Dan, has any of this been done in the Vista Ridge building, the air filtration?
The Vista Verde?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry,
Vista
Vista
Verde,
Ridge is something totally different. I'm sorry.
So no, that's right. So Vista Ridge is a
sorry.
pipeline, not a building. But yeah.
Vista Ridge,
yeah, you got saws on the brain. But yes, so Vista Verde has been fully outfitted. Again, we have the more medical grade ones because we have so much public coming into that first floor lobby. And I know Marquez and Mr. Uresti have been working very vigilantly on trying to make sure everyone that stays, outside, we minimize the number of congregation we have in the lobby. We try to service people as remotely as we can because all these improvements have been deployed at Vista Verde. And so there's other things that we've done. Again, there's some studies that say that the virus can survive on a surface, and we've all read those stories through the CDC and guidelines. So to defeat some of those possibilities, we've installed touchless door openers, touchless faucets, foot openers at restrooms across the county. We still have more to install. We're still continuing to do this effort.
Dan.
Yep.
Time out for a dumb guy question. How do you use that little touchless opener? I haven't been able to figure it out.
So it's a motion sensor, similar to just waving your hand in front of a motion sensor. So maybe you just need to wave faster. I mean, we could take a video.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay,
right
all
after
right.
this meeting.
So sometimes those devices go to like a sleep mode, so you have to wave twice. I did today at the courthouse entrance, but we'll make sure if you run into any that aren't working, David, we'll pay special attention to touching those. And then of course, during the early stages of the pandemic in March through May, we probably installed more plexiglass in our facilities than every hockey rink across the United States. I'll tell you, we dove into that. We said we didn't say no to any requests. There are fish bowls everywhere now that we can do that, and that's really where we have customer interaction, right, or staff that is sitting within 6 feet of each other. We fully deployed those. We bought temporary units. Those units were provided to the public, small businesses. We also did custom solutions for other departments. So here's a list. Again, it's a long list.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
It says electrostatic spraying. Where's that?
So these devices on the bottom right-hand corner are called electrostatic sprayers. So again, there's a certain number of chemicals that can kill the virus. They're on what they call the EPA-N list. N is the letter. We source some of that equipment, and then there's a spraying device called an electrostatic sprayer. It almost looks like a big misting gun, but what it does is it charges the particles of that mist before it exits, and it kind of helps the mist wrap around.
But is that something we're using right now? Where is that?
Yeah, so we deploy them now all over. So if we have a positive COVID case from an officer department, typically what happens is they vacate the area. We go in there within 24 hours, electrostatic spray the space.
Okay, got it.
It settles. It kills any virus that may be lingering on the surfaces.
So you have it to use. It's not something that goes off regularly.
No. So
Got
it's
it.
not something automated. It's
Thank
handheld.
you.
We have backpacks, and so we leverage them when we have positives. Thank you for that follow-up. So here's a summary of all these improvements we're doing. I know they're all the locations, and again, air purging is just at our detention facilities. We've done increased air changes everywhere. UVC lights are almost everywhere except for the animal shelter because it has just a small wall unit, and there's really no way to put UVC lighting on that particular unit. But that's kind of a summary of our facility. So what I want to kind of touch on real quickly is that I know that you guys have had COVID requests and CARES requests from these other departments, but these are other facilities where the county has ownership stake. CHCS, the downtown clinics, the AT&T Center, Toyota Field, and the Freeman Coliseum and grounds. So I'm going to really quickly go through. There's a lot of information on these slides, so I'm not going to bog down, but I want to kind of show you guys the significant investment that these other locations have made. So the Center for Healthcare Services, again, they bought air purifiers, temperature screening equipment at their owned and leased facilities. Now they're using a different technology called ionization, which is the same kind of virus killing as UVC, but it's a different technology. They had some contingency amount, and then their biggest expense was really building out the second floor of that Elizondo clinic so they could space out all the people they have waiting in their lobby, because they have a big intake function on the first floor of that, and they were going to push some of that overflow up to the second floor. The AT&T Center, as you can see, there's multiple lines on here. Again, and it continues to the second sheet, hand sanitizer stations, electrostatic sprayers like we have, touchless ticket stands, infrared screening stations, thermometers, light strike UV disinfecting devices, elevator filtration, all these other things, $2.2 million just at the AT&T Center in improvements related to those COVID-19. Toyota Field, which is owned by the county and the city jointly as part of a PFC. There were some socially distanced locker room upgrades because they were very tight locker rooms. COVID signage, backpack sprayers, electrostatic sprayers, portable coolers with HEPA filtration on them, safety fencing and protective distancing. Again, this is for when they were looking at their opening plan, how they direct people, how do they queue people up if they have limited capacity games. So those modifications are about $404,000. And then the Freedom Coliseum grounds, obviously, concession stands, touches point of sale, infrared thermometers. It's kind of the same run-of-the-mill that we have. The technology isn't rocket science. Everyone's leveraging kind of the same thing. But the point here being that $1.2 million was spent at the Coliseum on the grounds, similar to what we've done in our own county facilities. So again, in summary, the county has made significant improvements and adjustments to our facilities and other county-owned facilities to limit the potential spread of COVID-19 and the virus. And I just want to make one note is that we will continue to leverage these improvements as well as the mask and social distancing measures in accordance with the county judge's executive order to ensure safety of the public and the county employees. So we are, as of Wednesday tomorrow, what we're doing at the county will not change. So we're going to continue those best practices. And I'll answer any questions.
That's very impressive. A lot of great work. I think it's really going to be important for the AT&T Center because I believe the Spurs are going to start playing March 12th or something like that. So all of the safety measures that we put into the arena are going to be really important, as well as the Spurs are also going to require face masks, and I think probably stick to somewhere around maybe 17% or so to begin with. So they're going to be very cautious, and this really sets the stage for our first basketball game.
Judge, I just wanted to thank Dan and his team for all the great work that they've done in a relatively short amount of time, and of course in the beginning, not a lot of knowledge about how to deal with it, but you figured it out. And I thank you for the enhancements. I think it's great. I agree with the judge on the AT&T Center. It's a very important thing. One of the things that I want the court to be aware of, there is a program that can help small businesses do these same kinds of things. It's called the PACE program. And it allows for business owners to replace their mechanical, electrical, and plumbing with no upfront capital outlay. And this would be very stimulative to a lot of the contractors and construction industry here. And I think in general, we're going to start to see more federal money for some of these incentives. We may end up looking at rebates like we used to have a lot of on solar and things of that nature. And that will help defray the costs. But we're probably, when I first came to the court, I tried to introduce it, didn't quite get support because I think there was misunderstanding from some members of the court about what the program does. I think that I'd like to work with the court to expand this for small business owners as well. I think it'll be good for the economy and just good for the health of the building. So I just wanted to parlay to say it's great that we got money to do it, but there's a way we can help small business people do it for their employees as well.
All right, anything else? What do you got, executive session?
I just want to emphasize, I don't know, Judge, if you were going to talk about it, but for anyone who's listening and for the public and all county employees to make sure that they understand that even though the governor is opening Texas at 100%, that we, in all of our meetings, we will continue to wear masks in all facilities and everything. So just want to make sure everyone understands that.
Right, yeah. So we're instructing our contracted security officers as well as working with the sheriff's office that the medical screening measures that exist right now, which is temperature screening, masks, and the medical questions will continue to be asked past Wednesday. So the mask requirement will stay in place in county-owned buildings.
Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work. I had a personal tour of the AT&T Center relative to all the precautions that they've taken. So I know how hard you worked, and to Commissioner Calvert's point, you had to move very, very quickly without a whole lot of know-how, with a lot of money coming down to be able to pinpoint the areas that really needed to be protected. So I appreciate your help as we try to get some level of normalcy established with a mask on, to Commissioner Clayford's point. Thank you.
I appreciate it. It was a team effort. Couldn't have done it without my team, so I appreciate that very much.
All right, executive session. Oh, where'd Larry go? Here he comes. Larry, do we do all three of these? Okay. Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, executive session items may be discussed and acted upon for appropriate open session. Section 551071, consultation with the attorney for advice regarding pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers in the following manner: Joe Ule versus Bexar County, Misty Alcala versus Javier Salazar, Sheriff's Civil Service appeal case number, Coalition of Texans with Disabilities versus Jackie Callahan. Good, we got down pretty good.
I thought about it.
All right. Are we open yet? I guess we are, huh? It sounds like we are. Huh? All right, the court met in executive session. We're now back in open session. Do we have an item to take up in open session?
Yes, Judge. During executive, the court considered a settlement in the case of Misty Alcala versus Sheriff Javier Salazar and approved a settlement in the amount of $6,000, and that's $3,990.72 in front pay and $2,009.28 in front pay and $3,990.72 in back pay.
Have a motion?
Mm-hmm.
Got a motion? Second?
Second.
Somebody say something?
Second.
Second. Okay. I got a motion. Second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
no, the ayes have it.
Additionally, the court considered and authorized a settlement agreement with the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities versus Jackie Callanan for no money, but on the terms as stated in the settlement agreement.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Got a motion. Second. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That's it?
That's it.
Do we want to adjourn in honor of some great lost friends?
Judge, I do have actually kind of a long list here. Jesus Cardenas, Ana Victoria Cardenas, Gloria Ramirez Arguello, Maria de Leon, Fred E. Diaz, Deacon Jesse Fraga, Pedro Wincard Garcia, Oscar Lopez, Daniel Rivera, Richard Ortega Sr., Albert Paul Zepeda, and then we actually had three of the Salesian sisters, the order of nuns there at St. John Bosco, that passed away in the last few weeks. Sister Diana Felipas, Sister Sarah Garcia, and Sister Guadalupe Gomez.
Okay. Tommy?
Philip Abney, Ursula Brell, William Garner Sr., Calvin Drake Sr., Mrs. Tommy Lee Reagan Birch, Colonel Robert Howard Kerr, Alfonso Latson, and Walter Starkey. He was someone who was under our guardianship, and he passed away just this past week. So he'll be very, very missed.
Okay. I would like to recognize a woman by the name of Ann Pope Crook, who was a longtime educator in the Northeast Independent School District. Those of you that are somewhat familiar with her presence at Castle Hills Elementary, she was the principal there for some 25 years, passed away on February the 20th. So my condolences to her and her family, and obviously want to thank her for the contributions she made to education.
All right. Do we have need a motion to adjourn in honor of the aforementioned people?
So moved, Judge.
Got a motion to have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn in honor of the aforementioned people. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those no, the ayes have it.